Hello and welcome to Arroyo Seco Baseball as we are getting set for an Arroyo Seco Saints game that will feature, of course, the Saints. And this afternoon it'll be the SoCal Catch as the visitors. For the Arroyo Seco Saints, they're taking on the SoCal Catch in game number 2 of a 3-game set this weekend. My name is Ryan Osborne. I am joined by Chris
Diavanzo.
Thank you. See, I always get tripped up on names every time I pronounce it for the first time.
It's a difficult name. There's an apostrophe in there. It throws people off, But it's not the first time I've heard it.
So Chris Diavanzo, Ryan Osborne joining you here this afternoon as we get set for baseball. Speaking of the SoCal Catch, they are 5-7 overall and a 9-7-1 record. Right now, they're actually just a shade ahead of where the Arroyo Seco Saints are sitting at 4-10 in league and 6-12 overall in the CCL. Chris, when you look at Arroyo Seco, though they've been getting a couple more wins as of late, it's still been tough to get this season off the ground.
It definitely has. And, right now we're looking at a situation where there is a cluster of teams all towards the bottom of the standings that are all about the same record. And, you look at SoCal, they're 4-7. Our side is 4-10. So there really hasn't been that much of a difference even with the recent stretch of tough play. But as you mentioned, a couple of wins before the loss just yesterday. And so, the Arroyo Seco Saints have been playing a lot better baseball as of late, and you hope that they can just kind of keep that going and stay positive, and the result today hopefully will reflect that as well.
We're going to have the starting lineups in just a couple of minutes as soon as the national anthem is played. But once again, we remind you here at Jackie Robinson Field this afternoon, it'll be the visiting SoCal Catch taking on our very own Arroyo Seco Saints. As we get set for baseball in just a little bit, Chris, you already mentioned what the Arroyo Seco Saints have to do here this afternoon. But when you look at the specifics and the guy on the mound, J.D. Rusamano, what does he have to do this afternoon to keep SoCal in check?
Well, I think it's about the same thing that any pitcher has to do, which is, keep the ball in the zone, throw strikes. J.D. had a great start last time out, 4 innings pitched, and he only gave up 2 runs, and he really has been improving pretty much every start of the way from his first outing out to this most recent one. And so I would say for him to build on what he's been working on this season, which is keeping control in the zone, he's got good stuff. So for him, I would say focus on throwing strikes and mowing down hitters.
So there you go. You have the key things that J.D. Rusamano has to pay attention to this afternoon. It's the SoCal Catch and the Arroyo Seco Saints. We're going to take a quick break for the national anthem, and when we come back, it'll be Arroyo Seco Baseball on the air.
From Corbett University.
Welcome back to Arroyo Seco Baseball. Ryan Osborne joined by Chris Diavanzo this afternoon.
There you go.
Told you, it's just our first time. Whenever you go to pronounce something, that it always comes back to bite you just a little bit. So we're going to talk about this pitching matchup. We already went over J.D. Russomano, but now you take a look at Caleb Bly, who will be on the mound for the SoCal Catch. He is 1-0, just one appearance so far. 7 innings pitched and a 2.57 ERA as he gave up just 3 runs in his first appearance. When you look at Arroyo Seco's batting lineup, and of course they're going to come up in the bottom half of the inning, but when you look at Arroyo Seco's batting lineup, who is someone that Arroyo Seco can look to start the table this afternoon?
Well, actually, it's interesting that you're bringing up starting the table. There is a bit of a lineup shakeup, and we're seeing John Thomas tonight. Thomas out of USC, they moved him up into the leadoff spot from the 3 spot where he's been hitting most of the season. He's a phenomenal hitter, and he really does well, and he's been doing well all season long. And so by putting him up in the leadoff spot, we're going to hope that he's able to set the table a little bit for the Saints. We were talking about this off air, but that he's a great singles hitter, gets on base, really is going to do well, I think, in the leadoff spot tonight. And so it'll be interesting to see. I mean, you mentioned a pitcher like Bly, who's got great stuff and is somebody who keeps runners off the bases. You're going to need to be able to keep things going against him. So my hope tonight is that Thomas is really performing well for the Saints.
So there you have it, what the Arroyo Seco Saints have to look for when they come up to bat. But now we're going to take a look at the starting lineups for the SoCal Catch. Their batting order will start off at the top with their catcher batting first, and that is Ange Bourgeois, who will be leading things off. Jack Boone after him. Then Daniel Jung, the man who Arroyo Seco really has to pay attention to this afternoon. He'll be batting DH in the 3 spot with Hill Alexander hitting cleanup. After Alexander, it goes down to Jacob Rogers and then Grant Robbins as the 5 and 6 hitters. 7 and 8 are Omar Ortiz and Skylar De Los Reyes, who can actually give some pretty decent gap power this afternoon, starting towards the bottom half of the batting order. And then Jacob Nemeth rounds out the starting 9 for the SoCal Catch. We're going to get underway with J.D. Russomano on the mound. And you already talked about the fact that Russomano has himself some experience earlier this week in having a start midweek on Wednesday afternoon. His first delivery is to the outside corner for a strike, and very quickly it's 0-1 on the first pitch of the day.
Yeah, a great pitch there, and a good start for the Saints. You always want that first pitch to be over for a strike. It certainly sets the tone. Second pitch coming.
There goes Russomano into the line, and this one is fouled off to the left-hand side by Bourgeois.
The structure for the lineup for the SoCal Catch is definitely interesting. I mean, you mentioned the catcher. You typically see the catcher batting leadoff, but they have a lineup where you have a lot of guys set towards the bottom that are productive hitters. Definitely set up to where you have threats all throughout the lineup.
This one is smacked into center field. Jenkins trying to shield himself from the sun, and he is able to finally make the catch in left center field for out number 1. So very quickly, Arroyo Seco and J.D. Russomano are able to set down Bourgeois on the first attempt this afternoon. And it's always good for a starting pitcher to have that opportunity to get his first out in his first opportunity, with Jack Boone coming up next.
Yeah, and that sun today, of course, it's always brutal. These 6 o'clock start times, you start with the shadows. I mean, we can see them right here on the field. They're starting to creep in a little bit. So a good play by Jenkins to be able to keep himself in front of the ball and make a nice play and a nice read on the ball.
Russomano's first pitch to Jack Boone goes well up and high. So it's 1 ball and no strikes. He goes back into the line and delivers. It's a breaking ball, outer half. More sweeping action this time. And it's 1 ball and 1 strike. Defensively for the Arroyo Seco Saints, they're going to go with Bennett McCaskill behind home plate and John Thomas over at first. Gabe Chavez will start at second. Russomano goes into the wind and brings back that breaking ball inside half. Doesn't catch the corner, and it's 2 balls and 1 strike. Over at third is Colin Shepard, and at short is Drew Cowley. Left field is occupied by Cameron Briggs. Center field is Jacob Jenkins, who recently had that catch. And in right field is Christian Moya. Next opportunity is fouled back to the screen. 2 balls and 2 strikes to the second batter of the game in Jack Boone after Ange Bourgeois. ended up flying out into left center field.
You know, the thing about McCaskill, he's a sophomore going into his sophomore year at Dartmouth, but all of his coaches rave about his ability to work behind the plate and call a good game. That's a tough skill to have as a good pitch there, strike 3 called. But, it's a tough ability to have and certainly takes time to develop. But at such a young age, he's got such a command of the strike zone and really works very well defensively behind the plate especially.
And you talk about that last pitch from J.D. Rusamano, brought it on the inside half and was able to get that called strike 3. And now Daniel Jung will step up to the plate, and this is a guy to watch for.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I mean, this guy's arguably their best hitter on the team. 4.12 average, 3 home runs, 12 RBIs. Those numbers are great anywhere, and certainly we could use a little bit of production like that, especially today. But this guy is a big lefty hitter, power hitter, gets on for average, has speed. I mean, he's got everything that you could want in a player, and is looking to show those skills off today.
The attendee out of Notre Dame, after he takes the next pitch outside, 1 ball and 1 strike, and it looked like Rusamano was kind of living dangerously on that first pitch. He brought a fastball towards the middle half.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, that's definitely somewhere where you don't want to flirt with this guy because he's got a lot of pull power, and in this park especially where right field is the short porch, you want to work him on the outside corner. That was a good pitch there.
Just as you mentioned, it was on the outside half, and Rusamano gets it called for a strike. And now it's 1-2. There are 2 outs in the top half of the first inning. It's the SoCal Catch visiting Brookside Park and Jackie Robinson Field to take on the Arroyo Seco Saints. Next delivery, it's flown out towards left. Trying to get there in left field will be Cameron Briggs. He will make the catch looking into the sun, but that will be out number 3. So very quickly, J.D. Rusamano goes through inning number 1. We're going to go to the bottom half of the first, and it's still a scoreless tie between the SoCal Catch and the Arroyo Seco Saints. Welcome back to Arroyo Seco Saints baseball. As we get set for the bottom half of the first inning, let's get right to the batting order for the Arroyo Seco Saints. They'll start things off with, as Chris mentioned, John Thomas as the leadoff batter this afternoon for the Saints. Cameron Briggs will be hitting second, followed by Drew Kelly in the third spot. Bennett McCaskill will be hitting fourth as the cleanup batter, and Jacob Jenkins behind him. Bryce Gray will be hitting sixth with Gabe Chavez backing him up, and then Colin Shepard and Christian Moya round out the bottom of the batting order. Very quickly, it's 1 ball and no strikes to John Thomas, who's at the plate, out of USC. Much has already been talked about Thomas whenever he comes to the plate, considering his .436 average overall this season. And not to mention, his .375 batting average in league is currently good enough for 5th in the CCL.
Yeah, Thomas is having a great year, and it makes sense that they would move him up to the leadoff spot because you want somebody to be able to, as he pulls the ball over to first base there, you want somebody to be able to hit well and lead things off and really set the table for you. And even though that result there notwithstanding, I mean, he is certainly somebody that fits that profile.
So he takes an inside pitch and sends it over down the first base side. And Jacob Nemeth was able to pick it up and take it to the bag himself. That is out number 1. And coming up next will be Cameron Briggs.
Here's another hitter that's benefited, by the way, from the lineup shakeup, that he's somebody who's hit lower in the order, now hitting second tonight.
Briggs, a right-handed hitter, close to the box, and immediately goes after the first pitch. Well, the outcome doesn't come out much better than John Thomas. And very quickly on just 3 pitches, there are already 2 outs for the Saints in the bottom half of the first inning after the ground out is delivered by Cameron Briggs.
You know, I'm noticing something a little bit different in the approach. 3 pitches already for the first 2 outs of the inning. This is the team that all season long has actually been very patient, taking first pitches, working counts. Tonight, it seems that they're trying to attack this pitcher and go after him right away. And this might be a product of somebody, if you're throwing a lot of strikes, you're going to find yourself behind in the count anyway. So if you're getting a good pitch to hit, swing at your pitch.
Towards the outside half, immediately goes Caleb Bly, who's starting off this afternoon. Again, 7 innings pitched so far, a 1-0 record. And you talk about the aggressive stance that Arroyo Seco has taken so far in this game. I mean, only 2 batters through, but just 3 pitches. That's not usual for any club to be able to go through the first 2 batters of the game. Trying to figure out a brand new pitcher that you haven't seen this season, and yet go up there in just 3 pitches, and though they are groundouts, at least they are attacking. As Callie sees this next one and flies it towards deep right. It's still going back towards the wall, and it escapes for a ground rule double as it comes off the screen.
Nice hit. That was a curveball that hung up right over the plate. Cowley was able to pound that ball all the way to right field. I'd have thought that had a chance to get out, but it just missed short.
And you talk about the chance of it getting out. It looked like it just continued to carry. Initially out in right field for the SoCal catch, Hill Alexander was going back. It looked like he had a beat on it, but the ball just continued to carry and carry away from him towards the wall.
Well, you know, that's one of those things early on in the games, especially where the ball out here towards night will die down a little bit, but early in the game it definitely carries, and we've seen all season long the home runs and the big shots for power have come early in the game. And a lot of the runs come early in the game around here, so you definitely want to attack early.
And when you talk about attacking early, this is a spot where Arroyo Seco has kind of struggled so far this year, and the fact that whenever they have runners in scoring position, it's been a little bit tough to be able to bring them across. As the next batter up is Bennett McCaskill. McCaskill out of Dartmouth. Going into the set is Bly. McCaskill takes strike 2 inside half right at the knees.
See, now we're looking at a more patient at bat, but you know, you're in a situation now 0-2. You just got to protect. Can't find your perfect pitch. You're just going to have to find anything that's close and put a good swing on it. And if he makes a mistake, there's a big hole. You can capitalize and put it through there. That's a run. A base hit here would be huge for the team.
Here's the 0-2 pitch from Bly. Coming up and smack down the third base side. It's going to get into the corner. 1 run is going to score around first, down towards second. The throw is not in time as it gets away, and Bennett McCaskill with a 2-out RBI double. Now Jacob Jenkins can step up to the plate with the Arroyo Seco Saints already up 1-0.
That's a huge hit. That is such a big lift for this team, especially when you're faced with 2 out, nobody on. A rally like that, back-to-back doubles. And we're talking about protecting. He's got a pitch right down the middle, and he was able to pull it. He was on top of that pitch. That was fantastic.
So next up is Jacob Jenkins, a left-handed hitter. He has a lot of speed in center field. We've also seen him take some bullpen sessions as well as he swings at the first pitch and is fooled slightly.
Jenkins came in to save a game earlier this season, an 11-7 affair against Ventura County.
And arguably, that's maybe the way that the game of baseball is going to be heading. And we'll talk more about that later when you see dual threat type of batters and pitchers go up there and try and compete different areas of the game. A swing and a miss by Jenkins, who was well out in front of that one on a changeup. It's no balls and 2 strikes. Leading off over at second is Bennett McCaskill and Jacob Jenkins at the plate. Bryce Gray would be after him, currently in the on-deck circle. Into the set goes Blind. He's going to deliver over the top, and it goes too far up as Jenkins takes all the way for 1-2. And that's an area, Chris, where you have the ability to kind of waste one of those pitches. It's an 0-2 count. Jenkins, as a left-handed hitter who's already waved at 2, he may be susceptible going to that upper half.
Well, pitching is an art. And when you're faced, not every pitch is important necessarily. The at-bat is really what you're working on. So when you're faced in an 0-2 count, like you said, you can waste a pitch because you're 1-2, you're still ahead. Even in a 1-2, you try and make your pitch as a pitcher. You try and find your spot. You don't have to necessarily throw one right in the zone. Now we're in a 2-2 count. It's a little bit different because now, okay, we're back even. You don't want to go 3-2 because you run the risk of walking him and putting him on base. So this is a big pitch right here, 2-2.
So here's Jenkins. Next offering from Caleb Bly. It's a swing and a miss by Jenkins on a 2-2 changeup. That's going to do it for the inning on the caught swinging as Jenkins goes down for out number 3. However, a huge back-to-back double inning for the Arroyo Seco Saints makes it 1-0 Saints as we go to the top half of the second. This is Arroyo Seco baseball. Arroyo Seco baseball is on the air, and we have some good news to deliver. Or rather, the Saints have some good news that we can relay to you. Either way, it's still 1-0. The Saints are on top, and it's good to have an early lead, Chris. I mean, you talked about it earlier. The Saints need runs to be able to continue to try and stay in this CCL race. And with J.D. Rusamano delivering to Hill Alexander to start things off, it's always good to know that you have that 1-0 lead early in a game that settles you in.
Well, we talked about that in the pregame where we were saying positive momentum, being able to build off the good things. And when you're in a first inning situation, obviously one run doesn't make the whole game. It's only 1-0 in the second inning. But it's a positive thing to be able to build off of, and it sets the tone for the rest of the game. You go a 1-2-3 inning, and then you score a run in the bottom half. Right now, we're feeling good as a Saints team, and I have a good feeling about the rest of this game, I got to tell you.
There you go, and you look at J.D. Rusamano so far in this game. He set down the first 3 and delivers a big-time sweeper on that last pitch. Unfortunately for him, it doesn't get called for a strike, but very quickly it's 1-2 as a swing and a miss is delivered by Hill Alexander. Alexander is hitting cleanup this afternoon. He'll be followed by Jacob Rogers and Grant Robbins. So you have the right fielder, third baseman, and left fielder who are coming up to the plate. Rusamano not on the same page as Bennett McCaskill behind home plate. McCaskill, Chris, is one of those guys that you and the staff actually tabbed as the model for the uniforms this afternoon.
And he's living up to the billing, I have to say. Swing and a miss there, strike 3.
So down goes Alexander. Coming up next is Jacob Rogers. And speaking of those uniforms, let's get right to the matchup. You look at the Arroyo Seco Saints, they're wearing their alternate white home uniforms this afternoon with the, I guess you could say, spoon-type piping going right down the middle of the chest and around the neck collar, with the Arroyo Seco logo on the left chest, and then towards that right, what we'll say rib cage, I guess you could say, is the numeral.
Right on the arm sleeve there.
Navy blue outlined in gold this afternoon. Going with the white pants with navy blue and gold piping down the sides. First pitch is in the dirt. And that is delivered to Jacob Rogers at 1 ball and no strikes. For the SoCal catch, they're going with their all-red uniform tops with side paneling in black, as is the numerals and the lettering. They are outlined in gray.
They have a definitely an Arizona Diamondback type feel. The red and black, sort of the older school Diamondbacks uniforms from like 3 or 4 years ago.
Well, you can actually even take the now Diamondback uniforms and you look at their pants. It's definitely a shade darker than you would see normal gray road pants.
Well, the Diamondbacks have some of the most unique uniforms in all of Major League Baseball, and they have a lot. They have about 5 or 6 different combinations. Not to mention the throwbacks.
3 balls and no strikes, and it gets even more confusing when you realize that they're in their 20th season, and all season long they've been wearing different throwbacks. Here's Rusamano going into the line, and he delivers up high, so that's the first base runner that he's going to allow as Jacob Rogers goes up to first on the walk.
We need a throwback Saints uniform. This is the 15th season for the Saints, and I'm sure that they've changed their uniforms up a little bit over the years. But I have to say, and this is a biased opinion certainly on my part, but the Saints, I think, have the best uniforms in the entire CCL. I mean, they are nice and crisp, and the color scheme is just beautiful.
And you know what? When you look at both of those alternate uniforms, they are absolutely clean cut, as this one is skied over towards left, very playable. In fact, it's quite shallow, as getting over to the ball and making the catch is Cameron Briggs with one hand. He'll toss it back in. It's very quickly a fly out into left for out number 2, and Omar Ortiz up next.
I was talking with Rusamano, not before today's start, but before his last start, and one of the things he said to me was he, as a pitcher, loves to be able to get his teammates involved. You have pitchers that have electric stuff, they work on strikeouts, and you have other pitchers that definitely like to get the ball in play. You have teammates out there for a reason, and these guys all know how to field. And Rusamano today, for sure, has definitely worked to make contact with the batters, get the ball in the air. We saw that play just there. He's definitely used the field to his advantage, and it's really worked in his favor so far.
First pitch is in there for a strike 0-1. As he goes into the set for just the second time in this game, he'll quickly toss over to first, and scampering on back is Jacob Rogers. Rogers looked like he may have been caught leaning just for a second and was able to get back safely in time. Omar Ortiz at the plate, starting in center field for the catch. Left-handed hitter, and immediately sends this one into right, and it's towards the corner, but a good 10 feet foul, and he'll have another opportunity at the dish. So it's no balls, 2 strikes, 2 are gone here in the second inning. 1-0 Arroyo Seco. They have the lead after going up 1-0 in the bottom half of the first. Only one time at the plate, and already the Saints take the advantage. Rusamano into the set, takes a quick peek over at first, and delivers eye level to Ortiz. And that makes it 1 ball and no strikes. In the bottom half of the Arroyo Seco inning, it will be Bryce Gray, followed by Gabe Chavez, and then Colin Shepard. Those are the first 3 due up, as Rusamano looks in for the sign from McCaskill. McCaskill finds the location, as does Rusamano, but instead, that ball slips on him and goes too far up and high. 2-2.
He's trying to work that upper inside corner there. Definitely trying to bunch him up. He's got a long swing, and you want to be able to bust him in tight. He's not going to be able to pull that ball.
Rusamano into the set once more. Gabe Chavez creeps in from second base. There goes Rusamano, and now he has brought it to a full count. So Ortiz, after going down 0-2 in the count and fouling another pitch off, all of a sudden he finds himself with some patience in a full count at 3-2. The runner over at first, and Rogers is going to be taking off on the pitch. JD finds the sign, brings it home, and Ortiz sends it into the SoCal Catch dugout down the right side.
This is a good at-bat, even if it doesn't work out in SoCal's favor as far as the result. Be able to work the pitcher and get his pitch count up, especially out here. Pitchers aren't throwing 100 pitches per start. You get about 60 to 65. So if you end up using them all in the second inning on an 8-9 pitch at-bat, that's a productive at-bat, even if you're not able to get on base.
The next delivery with a 3-2 count. Well outside, and Ortiz has worked a walk. You talk about pretty good at-bats. I mean, you look at the way Ortiz battled back there from 0-2, now finds himself walking up to first. And if you're able to tag an opposing pitcher, not necessarily offensively as much all the time, but if you're able to tag him with those very long innings and very laborious type at-bats, it works out better for you in the long run, because then you're getting into the bullpen of either the Arroyo Seco Saints or just any pitcher that you're facing or any staff that you're facing. And the quicker you can get to the bullpen, normally the better it is for your squad.
And, the Saints this season have had a little bit of struggles with the bullpen so far. And even in yesterday's game, where it was a close game, but it was late in the game against the bullpen where the Cats were able to get their runs and come back. So, as a starter, your job is to be able to get as long as you can into the game. Even if it's not into the 9th inning, even if it's only into the 5th inning or the 6th inning, you have to go as long as you can. When you're throwing 8 pitches per at-bat, you're walking guys, it just makes your job that much more difficult. And out here, where you're only throwing 65 to 70 pitches per start, you're only going to be able to get about 5 innings in anyway. So you definitely want to be able to get hitters early. And Rusomano, personally, whenever he has his success, he's always getting guys out early in the at-bat.
Next up for JD, this is a bunt that's popped up and to the screen. It's not going to be shallow enough for Bennett McCaskill to trot over to it and get there in time. Snowballs and 1 strike with 2 gone. Don't forget that coming up here on the broadcast, we're going to have not 1, but 2 different interviews. 1 in the 3rd inning and 1 in the 6th. Tim Post is going to join us first, followed by Wyatt Kelly.
I'm definitely looking forward to those interviews. Those guys are class acts, very smart, know the game inside and out. It's going to be a good time for you. I hope you got some great questions for them lined up.
First pitch, actually the next pitch that is delivered to Skylar De Los Reyes is up and high. He has a 1 ball and 1 strike count after the bunt attempt that went foul, and then that one going much too high. He'll dig back in. Right-handed batter, Pine Tar on the bat, as he watches on with Rusomano going into his delivery. There's a breaking ball that sweeps its way in on the inside corner. Nice pitch by Rusomano to get back into it at 1-2.
That was a beautiful pitch.
Up next will be Jacob Nemeth. We've seen Rusomano already have some pretty good control over that breaking ball.
That really is a huge key to his game. And it's a key to anybody's game, being able to work those secondary pitches. And if you can throw them for strikes, you keep hitters off balance.
Rusomano goes off the mound, taking a look over at Rogers at second.
And Rusomano has one of the better curveballs on this team. So, again, it's whenever he's able to get it over for a strike, that's an equalizer. I mean, he's been having a little bit of trouble locating the fastball this inning. That curveball's keeping him in it.
Broken bat sent over to third, trying to pick it up is Shepard. He'll think about a toss to first. It won't be in time. It's an infield single for Skylar De Los Reyes. And he has officially loaded the bases on J.D. Rusomano with 2 gone. So even though it's a broken bat, it goes shallow enough over in between short and third to cause for a hit to come across and all 3 runners to be safe.
Now, this is what I was talking about earlier. They have structured their lineup so that towards the bottom of the order, they have big offensive threats. So you're now faced with a situation where the 9 hitter's coming up, but you have bases loaded and 2 out. And look at, you can see from just your screens, this is a big hitter, and you got to be able to make pitches to get him out, or otherwise you're going to be faced with a difficult situation trying to recover, and you have a lead to protect. It's early in the game, but 1-0 trying to protect this lead.
It is indeed a big guy up at the plate, and he immediately offers and sends it down the left field line, foul. Thankfully, if you are an Arroyo Seco Saints fan. Currently at the dish is Jacob Nemeth, who is starting over at first for the SoCal Catch. Going into the set is Rusomano. He won't be working out of his full delivery even with the bases loaded. And an at-the-kneecap strike is called for Rusamano to get him back into the count. Actually, to keep him ahead in the count at no balls and 2 strikes.
This hitter reminds me, is a similar build to Rhys Hoskins of the Philadelphia Phillies.
Next delivery, sweeping breaker. And Rusamano gets out of the inning on 3 straight pitches to Jacob Nemeth. And just as you were saying, Chris, he's got one of the best, if not the best, breaking balls on this entire Arroyo Seco Saints staff, and he uses it to get himself out of the inning. So it goes down as no runs, 1 hit, no errors, and 3 runners left on base. We're going to go to the bottom half of the second, where it is 1-0 Arroyo Seco as they protect their lead. This is Arroyo Seco baseball on the air. As you can hear in the background, Bryce Gray is going to lead things off for the Arroyo Seco Saints. Currently it is 1-0 Saints. And if you are an Arroyo Seco fan, as we know many people are over these past 15 years, you are quite joyed with the fact that they are up 1-0 to start this game off. There goes Bryce Gray, and his first pitch is going to be well short of home plate from Caleb Bry.
You know, if you're a Notre Dame fan, you have plenty of reasons to watch tonight. Bryce Gray, obviously a big player there at Notre Dame. Daniel Jung, another player from Notre Dame, and we've already talked about him and his prolific offensive numbers.
Fouled straight back and into the crowd for Bryce Gray as he tries to track where that went. A little bit of a head shake. Thought he could have gotten around on that one a shade more. But it's 1 ball and 1 strike. 1-0 Arroyo Seco. We're in the bottom half of the second inning. Coming up in the third, we'll have Tim Post and his interview as we get set for more Arroyo Seco baseball. Bryce Gray puts a tag on this one, but it's going to loop its way into center field. And making the catch in center for the SoCal catch will be Omar Ortiz as he shades his eyes from the sun and is able to make the play, and it is a flyout for out number 1. Gabe Chavez is coming up next. This is a guy who 2 weeks ago came back to the team and all of a sudden found himself in a starting role very quickly. Starting over at second for the Saints. His first pitch is well inside, and he has to turn away from it.
You know, one of the things about him, though, and the reason he got that job so quickly is because he's a great player and a great guy, too. I mean, he's somebody that definitely works hard. You always see him out here at the field early, taking batting practice, putting extra swings in. He puts a nice swing on that one right there up the middle. He's a tremendous player and is somebody who's going to go far in this game if he sticks with it. So I love being able to see him work and put the work in every day.
So Gabe Chavez is on with a single, and that work is able to come back and help him out in this inning as he is now standing on first. Up next is Colin Shepard. He'd be followed by Christian Moya if this inning continues to stay alive. There's 1 out so far. Ortiz in center field still trying to hide his eyes from the sun. Those playing the field are looking directly into the sun when they stare at home plate. Got a feel for them and the conditions that they're going through right now as time is called by Bly.
That's part of the game. You know, you get used to it. These guys, they're used to it. And I know that they play a lot of day games too, so The sun just comes with the territory. It's July. It's actually still June. It's June 30th, but it feels like July.
Gabe Chavez has to go diving back over to first after a check over by Caleb Bly. And you talk about that. I mean, you're in the CCL. It's not very many times that you're going to see pretty elaborately late starting times like a 7:30 or an 8 o'clock, as this one goes too low. As you would see in the college level game, a lot of times in the CCL, it's going to be those mid-afternoon or very early night games in which over half the game is played still during sunshine.
Well, there are plenty of teams. I think of Ventura County. They're not a CCL team, but Ventura County is one example, and the Conejo Oaks is another example. They don't even have lights on their field. You got to play the game of the day. There have been games where we've seen it in the record where a tie. Well, those games are called because they can't go into the 9th or 10th or 11th inning because they simply can't see the ball, let alone hit the ball. So, we're very fortunate. We have a great facility here, and being able to play the games at 6 o'clock by 7:30, it's a beautiful night. So it's rough in the early goings, but, as we said, as a team, you adjust to that, you get used to it, and, it benefits your offense because the ball does carry. So.
Quick check over at first. Chavez dirties his uniform once again, diving back. Colin Shepard still awaiting the 1-ball, 1-strike throw. Bly finds the sign and delivers to home. It's a changeup. And so far, that changeup has been working for him. He's already gotten 2 swings and misses from Jacob Jenkins and immediately gets a swing and a miss from Colin Shepard.
It does look like a fastball coming out. I mean, that's the best changeups, of course, when they're coming out of your hand, they look like a fastball, and then you realize you've swung at the pitch and it's still halfway to home plate. But he's got a great changeup as he gets a pop-up on that one.
Shallow towards left, trying to come on to make the catch. In left field is Grant Robbins, and Robbins is able to make the catch. He'll think about a toss to try and get Gabe Chavez over at first, but he's not going to be in time in any sense. And it's 2 outs after the fly out to left.
Now, we remember what they were able to do with 2 outs last inning, so you hope that they're able to do it again.
And with very good speed on over at first with Chavez, as Christian Moya steps up next. And you were talking about it while we were off the air. Moya has the opportunity and sense to really deliver whenever he's put into pressure situations.
I can think of him off the top of my head. The amount of clutch hits that this guy's had already this season. There's something about that where some players, they just have that ability. Beyond what their numbers say, when they come up, they're going to put together a good at-bat, and you want them in a good situation where they're going to be able to deliver. And Moya is one of those guys where, you got runners on base, he knows what to do, and more often than not, he delivers a hit, and that's just a tough skill to develop.
1 ball and 1 strike. Moya takes a look at the next pitch. It's at eye level. He chops at it. It's going to be taken and tossed to first. Is it in time? It is indeed to clip Christian Moya, as he was absolutely tearing his way up the first base line. So that's going to do it for the inning. It's a ground out that is recorded as a 6-3 in the scorebook. No runs, 1 hit, no errors, and 1 runner left on base. We're going to go to the 3rd inning, in which it's 1-0 Arroyo Seco with the lead over the SoCal Cats. Welcome back to Arroyo Seco Baseball as we are on the air with a 1-0 lead to the Arroyo Seco Saints. We're currently being joined by Tim Post as we get set for this top half of the third inning. And as we get set for the top half, we're looking at Ange Bourgeois in addition to Jack Boone and Daniel Jung. Blake Beers is now on the mound for the Arroyo Seco Saints and immediately sees this one flown over towards the left field corner. It's going to get down and land just a shade foul. Otherwise, that would have been an easy double and a possible play at a triple there for Bourgeois. So it's going to come back and be a no ball and one strike count. And Tim, just a moment ago I remarked, you go from Southern California, senior year of high school, all of a sudden you find yourself in New York City at Columbia University. How big of a change was that for you?
You know, every part of it, basically, from weather, lifestyle, and then, you know, the biggest part was just like the level of baseball, going from, you know, a good program at Loyola, but then, you know, D1 baseball is just a whole new world. So it was definitely, every part of it was an adjustment. But, you know, I've adapted well. It took a little time, but it's nice. It's nice. I'm happy to be home, though.
And you talk about being home. I mean, actually, we talked to Blake Beers on Tuesday, and he's going to the University of Michigan. Of course, you know him from your past at Loyola High School. He's going to the University of Michigan, and I asked him last week, hey, you know, what's the biggest difference? And he said, look, man, the first thing I went out looking for was sweaters. Was that the same situation for you?
It's actually funny. I have a good story for that. My first day, I meet my roommate, and he's from upstate New York.
This is sent down to short. Trying to pick it up is Drew Kelly. He'll sky it down the first base side. Luckily for Arroyo Seco, Bennett McCaskill was running down the line to back it up, and it stays just as we'll say an on-base attempt and an error that will be charged to Drew Kelly.
So yeah, back to what I was saying. I walk in my room, meet my roommate, and he goes, "Yeah, you ready for the winter?" And I said, "Yeah, I should be fine." I got this big old jacket, and I pull out a Patagonia, just one of those small little things that would keep me warm here. And he just started dying laughing. He goes, "Oh, you're in for a treat." So yeah, my parents came out, had to do a lot of shopping, shoes, everything.
So this one is delivered in the dirt. Up at the plate is Daniel Jung, the ever-dangerous hitter for the SoCal Catch. And you talk about going out and buying shoes. Were you one of those SoCal guys who went out and even though you expect a little bit of culture shock, you still bring those flip-flops just in case?
I definitely did. I brought my Converse, my flip-flops, and first, 4 months, I'd say, I got made fun of by my teammates a lot, just being that California guy. But it was a lot of fun, yeah.
Well, you definitely have to keep some of the style there for sure.
Oh, exactly. Got to rep the West Coast, the best coast.
Tim, I wanted to ask you about Bennett. You know, you've been working with Bennett a little bit, and you guys are familiar with each other from both playing in the Ivy League. Is there any a little bit of, friendly rivalry going on in the locker room right now, you being a Columbia guy, him being a Dartmouth guy?
Definitely, yeah. When I first looked at the roster a couple months back, I saw there was a Dartmouth kid, and I was like, oh, okay, so it's going to be like that this summer. But no, Bennett's actually a great guy. He's a rock behind the plate, and he caught one of my starts, I think it was last week, and he caught a great game. But yeah, they got to us this year. They took 2 out of 3 from us. That was a tough series for the Lions, but no, he's a great guy. Great guy, yeah.
Tim, this one was flown out into center field. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, I just wanted to ask you that, obviously summer league, the competition is still high intensity, but it's not so much the results that are important. It's sort of the development you personally as a player go through. So what are some of the things, so there's a throw on to second base there, safe in time. What are some of the things that you're looking for to work on as a pitcher this season?
Yeah, definitely. So
as this is tossed down to third, trying to steal an extra base the cheeky way is Jack Boone, and he will be cut down at third. Tried to advance after Blake Beers wasn't looking the way of third base, and Boone will be cut down. He is tossed out, and that's going to end the inning. We'll get more on that answer from Tim Post in the bottom half of the third. When we come back, it's 1-0, Arroyo Seco with the lead. Welcome back to Arroyo Seco Baseball, and right now on the air we have Tim Post, pitcher for the Arroyo Seco Saints, and Chris, we'll let you finish up that question and get back to Tim's answer.
Well, sure. Okay, so Tim, you're out here, you're working on, you're pitching every 4 or 5 days, you're working on new things. What are some of the things that you as a pitcher are looking to develop and work on this summer?
Definitely. So coming back to be with Coach Bueller, who was my high school coach, I knew he would, have some tips for me, and he definitely has. During the year, my freshman year, I struggled, which I never had before, with just throwing strikes. It seems so simple, but something got to me mentally, I think, where I got through a phase where I just, walk a lot of guys, hit a lot of guys, just really off and on. So being back out here, I've been working with Coach Bueller, just like changing my arm slot a little bit, and a lot of it was like mentality and everything. So, just working strikes. I'm trying to bust in a lot of guys. I'm trying to break as many bats as I can. That's what Coach told me to do. And I'm trying to develop my changeup as a good third pitch. Throw it to both righties and lefties. Utilize that a little more.
We were talking about that before with J.D. Rusomano about secondary pitches, and his secondary pitches are what really has propelled him to success so far this summer. So that's definitely a good thing to be able to work on. And, obviously you as a pitcher, you've got a handful of pitches in your arsenal, and being able to throw those consistently for strikes, that's going to make a big difference for you in your career.
Exactly. And that was a good changeup right there.
Swing and a miss by John Thomas. He'll be followed by Cameron Briggs and then Drew Kelly. As we are here in the bottom half of the third inning, 1-0 Arroyo Seco with the lead. And earlier, Tim, you talked about the big transition from high school ball into Division I college baseball. Was one of those awakening moments when your team ended up going out and playing the #1 team in the nation, defending national champion Florida?
Yeah, so after we won the Ivy League championship, we knew that we were, going to be a lower-seeded team. And so we expected one of those big guns.
As Thomas sends this one into center field, Ortiz is going to camp out underneath it, and he will make the catch for out number 1.
So yeah, we expected Florida, we expected an Oregon State, and when our name popped up in the Gainesville Regional, we were like, all right, it's time to strap up, get ready to go. And so it didn't really hit me until we had a practice before our game the day before down in Gainesville, and just being on that field, it's MLB status, ridiculous. And I just felt, I was like, wow, this is a lot of hard work paying off to be here in this situation. So yeah, I definitely had to pinch myself a little bit there.
Playing for Columbia baseball, of course, being in Division I, you always have that opportunity to go to the sacred land in all of Division I baseball. As this one is laced towards left field, Cameron Briggs is going to have himself a single, so he is on. And the first single since the second inning. Of course, we're only 1 inning removed from that, but Drew Kelly is coming up next. That sacred land out in Nebraska, Omaha, with a possible trip looming in the rest of your 3 years in Division I baseball. How does that motivate you?
It really does. Obviously we lost both games in the Gainesville Regional, and so next year we're already talking in our group chats. We just, what's next after that? We just gotta, what do we have to do to get past that? And obviously Omaha is, as the main goal. But it's just one game at a time, one pitch at a time. That's what Coach Beretti says. So yeah, Omaha would be great, but just looking forward to opening day again with them.
And speaking of Omaha, of course, the College World Series just wrapped up. Did you see any of the games that took place?
I watched the highlights. Unfortunately, I think we were in San Luis Obispo during that pivotal Game 3. But yeah, I definitely watched the highlights. And Oregon State being down 1-0, I can see that it takes a lot to come back, win both those games on the biggest stage. So props to them.
When you do see an unfortunate circumstance, such as what Arkansas ran into with 2 outs, bottom of the 9th inning, a small blooper over towards the right-hand side, and it lands in the campfire. 3 different players who could have had an attempt at the ball. All of a sudden, the series turns around. Oregon State ties it up. They take the win, and then they pretty handily win game number 3. As a pitcher, how do you break that down, even though it's not your team?
I mean, it's kind of a helpless feeling when you're on the mound and, you make a good pitch, you get a guy to flare it out to foul territory and right, and, those are your brothers behind you. It's tough. I can't even imagine if that was me or one of my teammates. But really, you just got to be there for him, pick him up. I can't imagine how he's feeling right now. But if I was the pitcher, you're that close and you did your job. So not much else you could say about that.
This one is fouled into the dirt. It's currently 1 ball and 2 strikes to Drew Kelly, who's at the dish. He already has an RBI double in this game. Actually, he had a double and came in to score on the RBI double by Bennett McCaskill. Over at first is Cameron Briggs.
Tim, let me ask you something about the team so far. And this might be a risky question with the state of the inning so far, but noticing how tight-knit that this team has been, and you guys have only been together for a few weeks already, but it seems that everybody has a great relationship with each other, that there's possibly lifelong friendships developing as we speak. So speak a little bit to sort of how the team has developed as far as their relationships and who they are.
Yeah, coming in, I knew Blake Beers, obviously. I knew who Bennett was from Dartmouth. And then Joey Steele, actually, he plays at University of San Francisco, which my brother, he plays on the same team. So they play together, and so my brother told me, and you warned me, watch out for this Joey Steele kid. So I knew those 3 a little bit. And then, first day, I was just greeted. I came in a couple days late, coming home from the regional, but I was just greeted so warmly. And then I don't know how many we got, 30-something great dudes in there, and just inning to inning, talking, asking for seeds, anything.
And, I mean, it seems like you guys have been teammates for years.
Exactly. That's honestly how it feels like. So it makes the drive out here worth it, just hanging with the guys.
Next pitch goes up and high, so it's going to be a full count at 3-2 to Drew Kelly. And you talk about, being almost having that sense of being teammates and friends for a long time. What is something that the team does maybe off the practice field, off the game field, to kind of get that sense of closeness?
The other day, actually, we had a nice beach outing down in Manhattan Beach. And I know a lot of these, guys from the Midwest, they don't have the opportunities.
Skied out towards right. Underneath it to make the catch is going to be Hill Alexander. So that will end the inning, and we'll get to Tim's answer in the top half of the 4th. But right now it's 1-0 Arroyo Seco with the lead over the SoCal Catch. Game's on and off the field. That's the conversation right now, but we'll get back to Tim's answer in just a second. 1-0 Arroyo Seco with the lead. It is Blake Beers on the mound. He'll be taking on Hill Alexander and then Jacob Rogers, followed by Grant Robbins. So we were talking to Tim about what the team does off the field to make sure that they get that bond together, and you had already mentioned that beach trip for the Midwestern guys.
Yeah, the beach trip for those Midwest, Texas guys who don't get to go down there too much. That was fun, and then, we have a group chat, we Snapchat, Instagram, all that. Just, guys trying to get to know each other, and it's working because I think the pitchers are definitely a tight-knit group, and I think the results are definitely showing the last couple games. Our motto is 4 runs or less a game, and I think we've done it 9 out of the last 11. So
why not 3?
It was 3 in high school. I think now with college, Bueller adjusted it a little bit because it's tough. It's tough.
You should go for 2 runs a game.
I should. You should go for none.
Yeah.
Blake Beers going into his wind, a 1-ball-and-2-strike count to Hill Alexander, and you can make it 2-2. And you talk about that 4 runs or less kind of mantra. Do you think that the CCL or maybe even Division I baseball has more of an emphasis towards offense? As this is sent up the middle, and it will be picked up by Drew Kelly, tossed on to first, not in time. So an infield single by Hill Alexander, deep short.
Yeah, back to your question, I definitely do agree with that. Just because, nowadays with baseball, you see more and more guys, in the 90s on the mound. And the hitters are just adapting. There's just these studs who just mash baseballs for a living. But then again, the strikeout numbers are up. So it's a balance, I would say. But there are definitely some big mashers out there you got to look out for.
And you talk about those strikeouts as Beers goes into the set. He's going to take a quick peek over at first. And immediately bunt is shown and pops straight back, foul behind the plate and into the crowd this afternoon. You talk about those strikeouts and home runs. Do you think that the, quote, 3 possible outcome rule is starting to change the way baseball is looked at and played?
Yeah, definitely with the new sabermetric wave coming in. It's definitely changing. Some people are changing with it, some people without it. I'm a little in between on which side I want to take because, growing up I was taught, when I used to be a hitter, smack the ball in the right field, right up the middle. Don't try to hit home runs; they'll come. And but nowadays, the swing paths are changing. I think every facet of the game is changing, whether that be fortunately for some or unfortunately for others.
Well, it's one of the best things about the CCL, though, is that the purity sort of the baseball being played, and that I know you guys, you're aware of your stats, but the statistical element of the game is not quite the same. Oh, that was a close play.
Toss over to second, not going to be there as Gabe Chavez ends up having that ball go in and out of his glove. A diving attempt that was initially made by Colin Shepard at third goes in and out of his glove. He tosses to Chavez out of his glove, so everybody's going to be safe in the infield. And now you have runners on first and second. And coming up next is Grant Robbins.
All right, so let me ask you. Imagine you're on the mound here for a second. We're in a tight spot now, first and second, nobody out. So what would be your approach to be able to get out of this inning?
So going back to yesterday, this would be my mindset. This was the leadoff hitter yesterday, so I know he's a solid hitter. I think he's in the 5-hole tonight. Just really pitch by pitch. You got to trust your defense. I know they just – 2 tough plays to start the inning. You just got to keep trusting them, making pitches, trust your catcher. Do what you've worked your whole life for, really, just hitting spots. Drops a bunt there.
As this is bunted straight back to the screen, and Blake Beers will have to continue to work here.
Well, there's something right there that would, in the statistical revival of baseball, is being lost. But a sacrifice bunt attempt on a 0-1 pitch with first and second, you don't see that in baseball anymore.
No, I know, especially in the major leagues. But at Columbia, we try to play a little situational, and then I know Bueller was, if we were hitting that, he'd be happy to see that because we had a meeting before the game talking about situational baseball, station to station, getting runners over, and especially this is a tight game. I agree with the bunt call here.
And when you guys talk about bunts and situational bunting, as a pitcher, are you more happy at the fact that they're not trying to go after that bunt? Because then you don't have to hop off the mound, try and figure out where you got to throw to first, figure out, different situations in your mind before a pitch?
Yeah, we do PFPs at school 4 or 5 times a week just for situations like this. PFP is pitcher fielding practice where, coach will drop a bunt down, runners, we have our outfielders running around, and you just got to have a mindset before the pitch is even thrown. You know, if it goes here, I can go to third. If it goes here, go to first. But that's when the catcher comes into play. He's barking loud at the top of his lungs. So, yeah, honestly, just trust the defense, trust yourself, breathe, relax. Oh, that's a good pitch.
That was close.
That was right near the kneecap,
Just
so
off
it's going
the plate.
to make it a 3-2 strike count. 1-0 Arroyo Seco with the lead. They got their advantage in the bottom half of the first and are trying to hang on here. With Blake Beers on the mound, he's going to go into the set and deliver to Grant Robbins. Next delivery, looped over towards right field and taking a couple steps back and making the catch is Moya. Trying to tag up down at third. A beautiful toss by Moya, but just a shade behind, as Shepard will field the throw, and tagging up from second base is Hill Alexander. So now you have runners on the corners with just one out. And when you look at these situations, as Chris was saying earlier, as a pitcher, watching your team go through certain situations, analyzing this, what would be the ideal situation or ideal mindset for a pitcher going into this at-bat?
Right here, you're just looking for a 2-ball, a ground ball, you know, right to second or short. This is where, you know, if I were on the mound, I'd rely heavy on my changeup. Get a hitter out in front, just kind of cap one. And, you know, a walk here doesn't hurt. You don't have to throw one right down the middle. You can be a little careful. I know we're heading towards the bottom of the order here. But with lefty especially, the changeup, let's see if Blake can utilize it.
As Beers goes into the wind and brings it home on that outer half, and he's able to get a strike across. 1-1 strike. And something that you said was pretty profound. Don't be too afraid of the walk in this situation. Do you feel like pitchers at the D1 level, or even here in the CCL, are too afraid of walking guys, as Beers goes to the breaking ball outside half once more and gets the call at 1-2?
It's a situational thing with that. Obviously, you don't want to walk the leadoff hitter of the inning. You don't want to walk guys with 2 outs. You know, no one on base. You try to get everybody out. But if it's a tight situation like this in a tight game, that's a nice pitch there.
Sweeping break once more, and Ortiz will end up striking out.
Yeah, so the walk here obviously doesn't hurt you, and is their 8-hitter right here. So,
and now with 2 outs, especially, the whole dynamic changes.
Yeah, now you're just trying to get out of the inning any way you can. You'll take a fly ball, strikeout, ground out, anything.
And when you see a guy like Blake Beers, I mean, earlier you talked about it, having that little bit of a commute up from your home to come out here and play CCL baseball, but knowing a guy like Blake, knowing a guy like Coach Bueller, who you are familiar with, does it help you in your experience at this level, as a strike is going to be called, and defensive indifference to the Arroyo Seco Saints is moving up to second as Jacob Rogers?
Yeah, me and Blake are on each other about everything, joking around, but when it's time to get serious, it's time to get serious with each other. We're holding each other accountable, keep each other in check, just working on stuff every day.
This ball gets away for a second. McCaskill's going to toss down to third, and it gets away from Colin Shepard. Trying to take an extra base as this one is tossed much too high to home from left field. And Arroyo Seco sees their 1-0 lead get erased and turned around just like that. All it takes is one error, and coming across is 2 runs to score, and it's quickly 2-1. The SoCal Catch take over.
That's a tough one.
Well, being a pitcher and watching that happen, what do you think maybe went awry for them?
I think Bennett maybe rushed it. He panicked a little. I mean, on the runner, I don't know why he was, even breaking on the first place. That ball was right in front of him. So maybe Bennett wasn't used to seeing a runner come toward him on a play on a ball that close to him. Maybe he panicked a bit. I'm not sure.
That's an interesting situation where the other team made a mistake, trying to break, and it ends up working out for them.
Yeah.
And that's just where, we're in a tough stretch as a team right now, and that's the thing that'll happen. Another side will make a mistake, and yet it will work out in their favor. We're not catching those same breaks.
That's baseball.
Skylar De Los Reyes will see this one end up hitting him on his left shoulder. So he'll run over to first, and Coach Bueller is going to take a visit over to the mound.
And now it's crucial we just get out of this inning. You definitely don't want it to go on.
You need to limit the damage. I think pitch count's getting up there a bit. It's not where he wants it to be after 2 innings out there. Bueller's just trying to calm him down right now. Blake is one to get in his head a lot when things start to speed up on him. So Bueller's just out there to slow it down right now. He's telling him exactly what you just said. Just get out of the inning, trust your stuff any way you can.
And coming up next is going to be Jacob Nemeth. And you were talking about it earlier. Nemeth is one of those bigger guys in the lineup. 6'6", 265. First baseman, batting righty out of APU, a junior.
Yeah, if the baseball doesn't work out, he could always play tight end.
As Beers goes into the set, and he'll take a quick peek over at first. De Los Reyes not really leading off too much, and Nemeth offers at the first one and can't catch up to it.
He's a very aggressive hitter.
No balls and 1 strike. And when you're watching one of your good, I guess you could say, buddies on the mound, what do you think is Blake's best attribute? Is this one is skied into center field and looped enough for Jenkins to get underneath it? And we'll go right to Tim's answer.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
What do you think is Blake's best attribute when he's on the mound?
Definitely his velo. He relies a lot on that. He's working on his breaking ball every day. I see him, but he's a big fastball guy, and it works for him. He's at Michigan. He's doing well.
So it goes now to a 2-1 lead for the SoCal Catch after 2-run score on 1 hit and 2 errors with 1 runner left on base. Now we're going to go to the bottom half of the 4th inning. Our score is now 2-1 in favor of the SoCal Catch, with Arroyo Seco coming up next. Arroyo Seco baseball is on the air. Ryan Osborne joined by Chris Diavanzo over to my right-hand side, and the first pitch that will be delivered to Bennett McCaskill will go too far inside, and that will be 1 ball and no strikes. And Chris, moments ago we were able to talk to Tim Post and kind of got that pitcher's perspective of what to expect when you're on the mound. And unfortunately, it happened at the same time that a very costly error took place behind home plate by Bennett McCaskill.
Indeed, and it's one of those situations where you really can't dwell on it if you're on the field. Obviously, us on the broadcast, we could talk about it all night. But if you're out there on the field and you realize there's a lot of baseball left to be played, we're only in the 4th inning and it's a 1-run game, you put together a rally, you can take the lead here, and you could potentially lose it again in the top half of the inning. So there's plenty of baseball to be played. I wouldn't panic if I was these guys, and it could have been a lot worse. That inning, we started to see that it was getting out of hand a little bit, but they were able to bounce back, limit the damage. So now you respond accordingly on the offensive side.
Next delivery on 2-2. He goes around and trying to dash up to first is Bennett McCaskill. He's going to be there safely. So not a play that you see every day. McCaskill ends up striking out, but yet he will be on over at first as the strikeout is not completed.
That's one of those steal of first kind of situations.
And that's actually a term that you don't hear very often anymore, because it used to happen a lot more when hitters, as soon as they would offer, if it would get away just a shade, they would be trying to take off over towards first. And I think that's where the pro level starts to kind of lag its way into, I guess, not irrelevancy, but the hustle plays of the past are no longer really being displayed. And that's one of them. If the ball gets away after a swing and a miss, guys are way too quick to walk towards the dugout, and therefore relegating their opportunity to be on.
Well, how many times do you see that where they're standing at the plate arguing as if that pitch, they didn't swing at the pitch? Hey, and there's another beautiful hustle play there by Jenkins.
Jenkins will bunt his way aboard. Moving up to second is Bennett McCaskill. So Jenkins is on with an infield single, an absolute beauty of a bunt in front of home plate. It went directly in between the catcher this afternoon in Ange Bourgeois. In addition to Caleb Bly on the mound, neither of them had a chance at it. And Jacob Jenkins is on over at first, and now down to second goes Bennett McCaskill. Bryce Gray is up next.
I'm sorry, but I'm curious to see what they'll do because Bryce is known as a power hitter. We were talking about that last inning, first and second, nobody out. You saw that SoCal was willing to sacrifice and move the runners over. But with a guy like Bryce Gray up at the plate, if you get the right pitch, he could put it over the fence. So, are you going to be willing to sacrifice this at bat and move guys up and put them in the scoring position when you could potentially drive them in right now?
That's a good point there, Chris, as Bryce Gray ends up looking at a changeup inside half for 1 ball and no strikes. And another thing that isn't noticed anymore or not used as much anymore is directional hitting. Even though you have power hitters up at the plate, you used to be able to see in the game of baseball where, as you see right now for those of you who are watching online, over at first, Nemeth is tight to the first base bag, but down at second, Skylar De Los Reyes is way pinched up towards second base, leaving a giant hole in between them on that right-hand side. Though there's a right-handed hitter at the plate, what you used to be able to see is a guy shorten up on the bat and try and shoot it into that gap. And we'll see what Bryce Gray is able to do here with that gap over down the first base side. But it's not utilized on purpose anymore.
And a 2-0 count, he might be looking to pull this ball. Now 3-0.
That goes down low, so we'll see whether or not he has himself a green light to go after a pitch. It's 2-1 SoCal catch on top of the Arroyo Seco Saints.
That's an excellent point you make about situational hitting and directional hitting. And honestly, in my opinion, this is one of the things that the team has struggled with so far here in the early part of the season, that being able to deliver in clutch situations where you don't necessarily need to hit a home run. A base hit would do just fine, but whenever they get runners on base, they struggle. But up now comes Chavez. Chavez hit a base hit his last time up, and with the bases loaded, he's the perfect candidate to have up at the plate right now.
The score is 2-1. The SoCal Catch have the lead, and they're going to have their pitching staff be talked to just for a little bit before we go into this at-bat with the bases loaded, and guess what? Nobody out for the Arroyo Seco Saints. Our score is 2-1. The Catch on top of the Saints right now.
Now, Bly in his last start threw 7 innings. So it's interesting to see that if he does get in a little bit of trouble, are they going to be willing to pull him? I mean, he's been pretty good, but the Saints have had runners on base pretty much all night. So his pitch count is up, and I can't tell from this angle, but they might have somebody getting loose in the bullpen right now. Bases loaded and nobody out. This could be a big inning for the Saints if they're able to capitalize. So this is a big pitching conversation for them right now. And yeah, obviously you want to be able to limit the damage if you're SoCal.
This could be one of the turning points in the game that you look at later on. Because you see Arroyo Seco with the bases loaded and nobody out. If they don't happen to capitalize and not come away with at least 1 run in this situation, in the 8th and 9th innings, you're going to be looking back at this going, okay, it's a 3-run lead for the other team, possibly. Mm-hmm. Where do those runs come across from? Well, it's this type of situation. That's the way that baseball normally works. If you leave a guy on third base with less than 2 outs on the board, normally it's a 1-run game in the end. If you leave a couple runners on in scoring position early in the game with less than 2 outs, it turns out to be a 2-run game, just the way baseball works. And for Arroyo Seco, it almost has that sense of they can't afford not to score in this situation. With Gabe Chavez coming up first, and he rockets this one down towards home. 1 run is not going to score as the out is recorded at home plate. Bennett McCaskill will be erased on the force out. Everybody moving up 1 base, including Gabe Chavez on the fielder's choice.
You know, I don't even want to entertain the idea that they're not going to score right now. This is such a huge moment in the game, and even for momentum's sake, when you have a bases loaded, nobody out situation, if you're not able to deliver, that is a crushing blow. And obviously you don't want to let it impact your performance, but just from a pure psychological standpoint, that is going to leave some sort of impact on you, and is definitely going to shift the momentum in SoCal's favor.
As Shepard rockets this one down to short, and everybody has to get back as Colin Shepard on 1 pitch, he liked it, but sent it directly into the awaiting glove of Jack Boone. And now coming up, all of a sudden, Arroyo Seco in what looked like one of the most favorable positions to score all season long, with nobody out and the bases loaded. All of a sudden, Arroyo Seco has the bases loaded and 2 gone. Up next is Christian Moya. And for Arroyo Seco, they're going to need one of those clutch hits that you were talking about earlier, Chris, but with Christian Moya at the plate.
Yeah, it's been an unfortunate couple at bats. I mean, those were 2 hard hit balls just right at somebody, and that's the unfortunate thing of baseball right there, is that you can put the contact on the ball and hit it right at somebody.
Looped over towards very deep short. Jack Boone will make the catch, and unfortunately for the Arroyo Seco Saints, they load the bases with nobody out, but less than 2 minutes later, they come across with 3 straight outs. That put them out of a glorious situation to score. We're going to have a couple of changes coming up in the field for the Arroyo Seco Saints. When we come back, it will be the top half of the 5th inning with a 2-1 lead to the SoCal Catch. This is Arroyo Seco Baseball. Arroyo Seco Baseball is back here in the top half of the 5th, and we wish we could give you a little bit better news if you are an Arroyo Seco Saints fan, as right now it's the SoCal Catch up 2-1 in the 5th inning. This is bunted straight back into the screen. This is almost not necessarily a mirror situation, but very similar to what we saw last night between the Saints and the SoCal Catch, in which Arroyo Seco had a 2-1 lead. They had that 1-run lead very late in the game yesterday, and then all of a sudden SoCal came back with a couple of runs, and they took a 3-2 victory in the end, as this one is tossed over to first by Gabe Chavez, and that will do it for the at-bat of Ange Bourgeois.
The big difference between last night's game and tonight's game, though, is that happened in the 8th inning. And, you're faced with 1 inning, you got to come back, and the game is completely shifted on you. The dynamics have completely changed. We're still only in the 5th inning, and I keep saying it, but there's a lot of baseball left to be played. It's a 1-run game. They loaded the bases up, and so from a moral victory standpoint, you look at it, well, we were able to get to Bly, put 3 guys on base, even though we weren't able to score. Just keep that same approach. Get guys on, and then, of course, when you get the guys on, you got to bring them in. But get the guys on first. So you got to just take the positive out of what came there.
Velocity is coming from Blake Beers. 1 ball and 1 strike as he looks to bring an inside pitch that is chopped at and delivered by Jack Boone over to first. It will be in time. Drew Cowley over to John Thomas, and that will be out number 2 very quickly. So Ange Bourgeois ends up grounding out over to second, and after him it is Jack Boone who grounds out to short, and 2 are gone. 4-3 grounder for out number 1, 6-3 grounder for out number 2. And Daniel Jung coming up next. Hasn't been in an opportunity to be as dangerous as we've heard him be so far in the CCL season, and he won't get the opportunity this time as he cracks his bat as soon as he comes out of the box, and he will ground out over to short. 2 straight that are delivered to Drew Cowley, and he converts on them both. 1-2-3 inning for Blake Beers and the Arroyo Seco Saints as we go to the 5th inning. Or actually, the bottom of the 5th inning. We're already in the 5th. I'm ahead of myself. Our score is 2-1. The SoCal Catch on top of the Arroyo Seco Saints, with the Saints coming out to bat. So John Thomas is looking to set the table for the Saints as we come up to the bottom half of the 5th inning. And the score at 2-1. The SoCal Catch are currently in the lead on top of the Arroyo Seco Saints. We're getting towards those latter halves as we have currently gone through exactly half of the game. 4.5 have been completed to this point. Well, Arroyo Seco is hoping that John Thomas can help start something. And by starting something, we don't just mean starting something getting on base. We also mean we want Arroyo Seco to bring across those runs.
We want a big rally is what we want. I would love to see 7 runs this inning.
We haven't seen one of those bigger type innings since the 11-run outburst that Arroyo Seco delivered 2 weeks ago. 2-1 lead for SoCal. Thomas sees this next pitch, offers at it, and fouls it straight back.
That was a good swing. I would love to see JT be able to just really get a hold of one here. That's the one thing where in his game so far where he's struggled with this season. He's had a great season. I don't want to make it seem like I'm speaking bad about him. But the power really hasn't been there yet. I would love to see him be able to get a charging one, hit it for extra bases right now.
Next delivery, John Thomas well ahead of it. That changeup has really been working for Caleb Bly to this point. And for Bly, from our count, he has only given up a total of 3 hits this afternoon in a grand total of 4 innings pitched. Outside corner strike. John Thomas knew it as soon as it crossed the plate. That will be a strikeout looking at only the 7th that Thomas has experienced so far this year. This is a guy who is excellent in getting on base. 483 entering this game, and he just hasn't been able to get on. And it seems as if John Thomas so far, in these last, we'll say, 2.5 weeks or so, seems to kind of be going in that same slide as Arroyo Seco. There are some days where he'll get on 4 or 5 times as this is bounced towards the third base side. Then there's some days where he'll end up maybe 1 for 4, 1 for 5, or not even get on base overall, though that on base percentage stays pretty clean. It's just unfortunate in that There are those days for baseball players and for John Thomas included that he's just not able to get aboard.
I'm not sure what the pitching coach told the Bly, but he's been fantastic since that mound visit. He's retired, I think, the last 4 batters.
You are correct, sir. 1 ball and 1 strike. Caleb Bly entering this game, 7 innings pitched, a 1-0 record, and 2.57 ERA. Next up, that is inside half, right at the knees. He had 12 strikeouts, 9 of them came on swing and misses. And here's the more flabbergasting type of stat, I guess you could say. Entering this game, he had thrown 67 strikeouts, but 36 balls. Next up for Bly, there's a strikeout looking, so he will add to his totals in this one.
He's throwing strikes right now. I mean, I'll tell you what.
Well, entering this game, I mean, you see 67 to 36, and you're thinking, wow, okay, it's not even a 2-to-1 ratio in strikes to balls, and yet he was efficient in his last appearance, and he's been efficient here tonight. He's got 3 strikeouts to his credit, 2 of them on backwards Ks, 1 came swinging in the first inning from Jacob Jenkins. But his stuff has been able to move around in the strike zone, 1 ball and no strikes, with 2 away for Arroyo Seco.
He's one of those effectively wild types then. You know, you've heard that term before, but a pitcher that throws a lot of balls and keeps hitters off balance because they don't really know if the pitcher's going to be even in the zone. But he's able to use that to his advantage and make the pitch when he needs to. And today, obviously, he's been able to do that, getting out of jams. That last start, 7 innings, 2 runs, that was a great performance by him. And that ERA is lower now after the 3 2/3 today. 4 2/3, excuse me.
2-1 lead for SoCal. Arroyo Seco trying to get back into it, looking for the chance to tie as there is a strike called on the outside half. And that changeup has been excellent this afternoon for Caleb Bly. You talked about his efficiency inside the strike zone. A lot of that is due to the fact that he's been able to locate that changeup.
Yeah, and that's one of the themes of the broadcast today, the secondary pitches. And that was a fastball there, but what makes that fastball effective is his changeup. His changeup really has been the most solid pitch he's had today, being able to use it to get into good counts. If he threw it on a 2-0 count there to be able to get back into it. So he's able to keep hitters off balance because he's got a very good changeup and he works those secondary pitches and throws them for strikes.
Next delivery trying to get that called third strike right at the knees. Staying away from it and now forcing a full count is Drew Cowley after Cameron Briggs went down on a strikeout looking. Next up for Cowley, as he will watch on as a left-handed batter. It's up and away, and he will swing and miss. Ball gets away for a second. The toss over to first will be not in time. So for the second straight inning, we are able to see a strikeout for a pitcher that is not completed and the runner moving up to first. The question is, can Arroyo Seco capitalize on the mistake by SoCal?
Now you're faced with 2 out and 1 on. So obviously this isn't exactly the most conducive for a rally, but whenever you're given an opportunity like that where the inning was over and now it's not over, you got to be able to capitalize on it. That's what SoCal did at 2 outs, and they were able to get 2 runs on an error. So, you know, you got to take your opportunities when they come, and this is definitely one for the Saints right now.
So here is Nick Lacayo, first time up at the dish after he took over in the last half inning behind the plate. And he will take just inside for 1 ball and no strikes. 1-run deficit for the Arroyo Seco Saints as dusk just starts to take its way and grab hold of Brookside Park. Rose Bowl behind us holding a competition for what looks like, at first glance, a high school band competition. That's the sounds that you can hear in the background. And you're thinking, wait, I thought UCLA played in September and November. Well, it's actually a competition, so no, that is not the Bruin band behind us.
They sound like them, though.
That is fair. I mean, they're doing quite the good job behind us as Lacayo offers at it and flies it into very shallow center. Ortiz is underneath it. He'll lose his cap, allow the Locks to be able to fly as he makes the catch to end up finishing off the inning. A fly out into center is out number 3. No runs, no hits, no errors, and 1 runner left on base. We're going to go to the top of the 6th, in which we'll have another interview coming your way. right here on Arroyo Seco Baseball. Welcome back to Arroyo Seco Baseball. Right now we're being joined by Wyatt Kelly here on the broadcast as we get set for the 6th inning of play. It is the SoCal Catch up 2-1 in this game as Blake Beers reprises his role on the mound. And coming up to the plate will be Hill Alexander, followed by Jacob Rogers and Grant Robbins. So as we're being joined by Wyatt, you take over from junior college going into the Division I level. What was the shift like for you?
Where I was at in junior college was like really offensive, and then going to New Mexico State was pretty similar. But I found it easier to pitch there, just because like the hitters were just a little bit different. And, like you could mix better, and I like it a lot more.
When you talk about that offensive shift, and it's interesting that you said that it's easier to pitch at the Division I level with New Mexico State. How do you think the mentality changes whenever you're going up to pitch?
Well, I can attack a lot with my fastball, which is nice. And then in junior college, a lot of the hitters just look fastball a lot, which is pretty difficult to get guys out. And then the parks also, the wind blows, and we're at a pretty high elevation, so where we play around a lot in the Division I level, so we'll go to different parks where the ball doesn't carry as well, so it's a little bit easier to pitch.
And you talk about the elevation. A lot of people just think, oh, okay, New Mexico, desert, it means you're mainly looking at like a basin-type altitude, as that ends up being ball 4, and running up to first base is Hill Alexander. But they don't realize that, you know, when you look at New Mexico, there's a lot of altitude ball to be played out there. And then also being at New Mexico State, it's different atmospheres that you have to pitch in and get used to in a hurry.
Definitely, you know, and it's nice too because junior college we played all-day games and the ball flew out. Like we had a 350 fence and it played probably like a 300 fence, so it was rough. It was a little rough to pitch, and then we have a lot of night games and the ball doesn't carry as well in the Division I level, so it's nice.
And you talk about that 350 fence. I mean, just looking at the super regionals that happened in the NCAA level, it's kind of comparable to the 355 power alley that North Carolina has.
Yeah.
Do you think that that type of short porch, as John Thomas tries to get over to a ball, making over-the-shoulder diving catch?
Oh boy, JT.
John Thomas ranges back and reaches over his shoulder, slides to make the play, and he will make it out number 1 as a pop-up over to first. Will be the first guy retired. That is Jacob Rogers. John Thomas with the play, and Hill Alexander will stay on first as Grant Robbins is up next. But you look at having to pitch in different atmospheres in a hurry, and then also that 355 porch in North Carolina. You mentioned the 350 porch that you had at the junior college level. How difficult is it to be able to get in a set mentality on the mound when you know that a park is playing so close to home plate?
Well, what junior college did for me a lot was it helped me get the ball down. And where if you leave it up, it's going to get hit a lot further. So like it disciplined me really to get my fastball down and work low and get ground balls.
Wyatt, let me ask you something about today's game. You know, you faced these guys yesterday, and you can see their lineup, and you obviously have a little bit of experience pitching to them. So how would you rate our pitching staff's performance today, the Saints pitching staff, as far as being able to get guys out and keep the game close today?
I think Russo did a great job starting us off. You know, we had probably like 3 or 4 Ks through his 2 innings, and he ran into a little bit of trouble in the second, but that was just because of walks. But then Beers is doing a great job today, and then that error in the fourth kind of hurt us a little bit, but hopefully our offense gets going.
Well, you know, when you face a situation like that, an error, obviously we were talking about this with Timmy before, but that you're faced with a lot of situations where you're not getting the breaks, and that's the way the season's gone so far. So how is the team responding to moments like that? I mean, it feels like that would be something that would get you guys down, but looking at the dugout, it appears that you guys are staying positive and being able to fight through these situations.
I think throughout the team, though, we have a pretty good culture, and we're pretty resilient. We're able to bounce back, which is good. We have a lot of toughness.
Flown over towards left. Grant Robbins ends up flying out for out number 2. Staying over at first is Hill Alexander. And you talk about that tight-knit type of group. I mean, we asked Tim, hey, what does the team do outside of the practice field, outside of the ball field, to be able to get a little bit closer? You being from New Mexico and then coming here to California and having to get used to, okay, I've got to play a quick season and also get as close to these guys as possible, because I'm going to be maybe rooming with them or playing with them for the next 2 months straight. How did you make sure that you kind of made that bond with your teammates quickly?
Well, I think a huge thing is over at the Oxy House, I think there's about 7 or 8 of us living there. So, there's a lot of us over there, and we're all pretty close-knit. And then the guys will come over, the other guys that aren't from here, and they'll all come over to the Oxy House, and it's just nice to hang out with all the guys.
Fly out into left. That's out number 3. We're going to have a little bit more of this interview when we come back. It will be the bottom half of the 6th inning with a 2-1 lead to the SoCal Catch. This is Arroyo Seco baseball. We're getting set for this bottom half of the 6th inning. The Saints looking to put some offense on the board and in a hurry. Time is running out just a shade here in this game with the SoCal Catch up 2-1 as Jacob Jenkins comes up to the dish and immediately sends a rocket down to third. He has the speed to try and beat this one out. The toss to first. The pick is in time. Jenkins tries to beat it out. It was a close play down at first, but making the toss is Jacob Rogers, and making the pick was Jacob Nemeth.
I'm going to put you on the spot here, Wyatt. You've been working closely with all of these pitchers. Who's the one pitcher, aside from yourself, of course, that has really impressed you the most working with him, and something that you've been able to take away from them?
I think Russo's, Jonathan Russo, his work ethic is unreal. He comes out to the ballpark every day, and he's always working up a sweat, always throwing. Him and Steele just work really hard. So it's nice to watch them.
We talked with Tim before the game, or I guess during the game, not before the game, and we said, okay, he knew Coach Bueller from before. He knew Blake Beers from high school as well. Was there anyone on this staff or on this team that you knew prior to coming here?
I didn't know anybody on the staff, but I did. Me and Cooper played together last year, which is nice. And then I met Tristan on his visit to New Mexico State, so I had a little bit of history with him. So I knew a couple.
Does that make the transition a little bit easier, having somebody who was your teammate and, you guys have gone through the struggles together and now you're out here, and So it's not as if you're completely surrounded by strangers?
Yeah, it's nice because me and Coop, we're roommates too right now, so then we get to spend a lot of time together, and then we just go out and see the other people. And it's kind of like we get to force each other to like go out and like hang out with the other guys.
And you talk about going out and hanging out. I mean, you said you were initially from Southern California. You move out to New Mexico. You come back to California to play some ball, as there's a strikeout to Bryce Gray to make it out number 2. What is something that you personally would like or have already done in leisure time here in California before you take off?
I think a little bit of leisure time. I want to go to the beach a little bit more before I leave. I went once so far this summer, but I'd like to go a couple more times. Something I don't get to see too much out in New Mexico.
Is there any specific beach that you like or prefer?
I would like to go back to Huntington Beach just because I grew up there, so it'd be fun to go back and kind of see it again for the first time, probably like 6 or 7 years.
There's a strike towards that outside half, delivered to Gabe Chavez. And you mentioned being in New Mexico, not being able to see the beach as much. What is the normal time in between, I guess, beach visits for you being out there?
Ever since baseball kind of picked up for me, I haven't gone to the beach probably since I was 12, so almost 10 years. It's been a long time, yeah. Yeah, and I used to come back all the time, but once summer baseball picked up, didn't come to California much.
Now, is this your first experience in a summer league baseball like this?
I played last year in Farmington, New Mexico, but it was nothing like this. This is a lot more games. We travel a lot more, whereas when I was in Farmington, it was mostly home games, and we didn't play as good of competition.
So what would you say you're taking away from this experience is there's a fly ball in the center field?
From this experience, just like a lot of repetitions on the mound, which is nice.
So we're going to take it to the next inning. Top half of the 7th is coming up with a 2-1 lead for the SoCal Catch. This is Arroyo Seco Baseball on the air. Good times here at Arroyo Seco Baseball, as has been the case all season long. We're currently being joined by Wyatt Kelly out of New Mexico State. And Wyatt, we've already talked about your experience here with Arroyo Seco. Going back to your Division I program, you're at New Mexico State. You have those rivalries in the Division I level that start to build their way up. I mean, you look at New Mexico, maybe even the University of Arizona. I'm not as familiar, but how do you think the level of opponent or maybe style of play goes up when you go and face a rival?
Well, adrenaline definitely kicks in a little bit more. Like when we play GCU, which is probably our biggest challenge in our conference, and like going to those games, nerves hit you a lot more, and adrenaline kicks in. It's pretty fun though. It's a good experience.
First pitch and the next couple go inside the strike zone. 1 ball and 2 strikes. It's a 2-1 lead for the SoCal Catch. Currently at the plate is Skylar De Los Reyes. Trying to bring some velocity on that one is Blake Beers.
Yeah, Beers has had a great effort today. This is the 5th inning here in relief. He's I don't know if he was even anticipating coming in to pitch today, but he came in the 3rd inning and has really done a very good job. I mean, he's done a great job all season long.
Next up for Beers, he goes with the breaking ball. It's up. Lacayo trying home plate in foul territory. 1 away, and Jacob Nemeth coming up next. Nemeth will be followed by Ange Bourgeois. And Jack Boone if the inning stays alive for the SoCal Catch. And You look at the upcoming schedule. 9 away games in 11 days. How do you make sure that you keep yourself not only fit and ready to play, but also mentally into a season when you're having that many games and also traveling up to Northern California in such a close span of time?
I think for me, water's huge. I like to stay hydrated. If I don't, my body just doesn't feel very good. That was a great play by Gabe.
Is there. John Thomas receives the throw from Gabe Chavez, who lays out to make the catch and toss over to first. Took a couple of bounces on its way over to first, but John Thomas stays with it, and the out is recorded. Beautiful pick and toss by the shortstop, who moves over from second. Drew Kelly, Gabe Chavez, they switch places, and now with 2 outs very quickly, coming up next is Ange Bourgeois. 6-3 grounder, 2 gone. Bourgeois swings and misses. 2-1 lead, SoCal. They're up. When you have that looming trip going up to Healdsburg and then also San Luis Obispo in the next week, what are you doing to prepare, maybe packing wise, and what do I need for supplies when I go on a trip like that?
Packing wise, just gotta make sure I bring my glove. Really, as a pitcher, I just need to make sure I got my uniform, my cleats, and my glove. But supplies, just some snacks, really.
That's fair.
Yeah, granola bars, Gatorade, and the like.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long bus trip.
2-1 count to Bourgeois. And you talk about those long bus trips. Of course, it's around a 6 or 7 hour drive up to Northern California, especially if you're taking the bus and going through downtown LA. How do you and the team pass the time in those opportunities in which you have a long downtime?
We play a card game called Mafia, which is pretty fun, and we all play it in the back of the bus, and it passes the time pretty quick.
This is going towards the left center field gap, trying to get there, and going in and out of his glove in left field is Cameron Briggs. The toss over to second won't be in time. That will be an error to Briggs as he gets to the spot, but it goes off the top of his glove and into the left center field gap. So a runner will be on at second. And up next is Jack Boone.
Now, as a pitcher, you're imagining yourself on the mound there for a second, but you think you're getting out of the inning. You make a good pitch, the ball, he's not able to make the play, and then all of a sudden you're faced with a guy on second base, and you got to make another pitch to get out of it. So how does it impact you as a pitcher mentally when you're on the mound and you think you're going to be able to get out of it, and now all of a sudden you're forced to be able to get through another batter or two?
Well, I think it's just a little bit of toughness, and then you know that's still your runner out there, and you need to make sure that guy doesn't score and keep it a 1-1 ball game, and then attack this guy and try to get a ground ball and get out of the inning quick.
When you're pitching here at Jackie Robinson Field, as the next pitch from Beers goes in there for a strike, and it's 1-1, you know that the dimensions are 345 into right, 364 in center, and 374 down the left field line. Do you, on occasion, pitch to the advantage of the deep porch and left?
A little bit. I'm not as scared to get him beat inside or something, but really just making good pitches is all you have to do. It's a wood bat league, so as long as you just don't leave it down the middle of the plate, guys are going to have trouble hitting. It's Southern California. The ball doesn't carry too well, so.
Next up, pitch there. Beautiful breaking ball inside half, strike 3 call. Jack Boone is retired. Beers says, well, if the out won't be recorded earlier, I'll do it myself. We're going to go to the bottom half of the 7th. It's stretch time with the 2-1 lead to the SoCal Catch. Welcome back to Arroyo Seco Baseball. We're currently on the air as we get set for this 7th inning in which the Arroyo Seco Saints are coming back to the dish, and they're going to start things off with Colin Shepard. Gabe Chavez was the last out for Arroyo Seco, and Gabe Chavez earlier in this inning was able to put away an absolutely beautiful defensive chance from very deep short.
That's a play that we're going to have to submit to ESPN Sports Center. See if we get on the top 10. And that was a great play by Thomas, too, to be able to pick the ball.
There's a new pitcher on the mound as Colin Shepard sends a two-hopper down to second. Picking it up, tossing to first is Skylar De Los Reyes. And he is able to clip Colin Shepard on a 4-3 grounder. He is retired, one is gone. And Brendan Arcomanis is up on the mound.
You know, the pitching tonight for both sides has been really great. Bly, obviously, 6 innings, 1 run. Right now is the winning pitcher of record if the result holds. But even on our side, Blake Beers, 5 innings, a pair of unearned runs, and J.D. Rusamano with 2 great innings to start the game. This has been the definition of a pitcher's duel, and you can see it in the result right now. It's 2-1.
It's just an unfortunate circumstance for Bennett McCaskill behind home plate to have that costly error. That came across in the 4th inning as Moya takes an outside corner strike for 1-1.
And, of course, the runners left on base. You know, you hope that doesn't come back to bite them, but right now, you look at the result, that's an opportunity that they wish they could have had back.
Bounces home for Moya as he takes a look once more. One is gone, 2-1 lead for the SoCal Catch. The Orange Coast College product is now on the mound. And he is pretty happy because not only has his team very recently won the California State Championship. Next delivery to Moya, who swings and misses. 2 balls and 2 strikes, but Kobe Bryant recently spoke with the entire baseball team for
he did.
The Orange Coast College Pirates.
I mean, anytime you have a legend like that coming through and being able to impart some of their wisdom, it's just an incredible experience. That's something that they'll never forget. Having somebody like Kobe Bryant be able to come and speak to you, and you know, obviously Kobe, the things that he's gone through both as a professional athlete and in his own personal life, that's something that really impacts you for the rest of your life as just an individual.
Next delivery to Moya over to deep short, trying to pick it up. Toss over to first is Jack Boone. The pick is not going to be caught by Jacob Nemeth. It handcuffed him and pops in and out of his glove. It will fall to the floor. Safe over at first with an infield single is Christian Moya. And there is a base runner for the Saints as John Thomas comes up next. And one thing to notice, I mean, though you have Kobe Bryant talking with the Orange Coast College Pirates, it seems as if a lot of big-name athletes and celebrities are starting to either talk with or prank different community college teams here in Southern California.
What an interesting little factoid there. I mean, I don't know what would start that trend, but I'm happy. That's a trend I fully endorse, I have to admit.
Earlier this year, we had, I believe it was earlier this year, there was Chris Bryant, who ended up pranking the Mesa College baseball team as he dressed like he was a transfer from another university who could just power pitches out of the ballpark.
I remember that.
Then you also have Jared Goff, the starting quarterback for the LA Rams, who came in and pranked the Ventura College Pirates as he acted as if he was a transfer from another university, a Division I starter, as John Thomas ends up fouling this one off to the right-hand side.
I have a feeling that they all started with the whole Uncle Drew prank, and I mean, it's come full circle now that Uncle Drew is a movie that you can go see in movie theaters, but I always love seeing those videos on YouTube whenever you see a professional athlete, they're in makeup, don't look anything like, I mean, you've seen them with Jeff Gordon, too, where he'll take somebody in as a taxi cab driver, and you have no idea. I mean, if that happened to you, you'd have no idea.
To the set goes Argomanis, and this one is grounded as a high chopper down to second. They're going to miss the relay onto second base, as dropping it for an error will be Jack Boone. He had it in his glove, just wasn't able to make the transfer, had his eyes on first base looking for the double play before he secured out number 1. Moving up to second in scoring position is Christian Moya. Over to first goes John Thomas, and Cooper Williams will be batting for Cameron Briggs.
This is a big pinch hit opportunity here for Williams. And obviously, it's one of the most difficult things to do in all of sports, to come off the bench cold, come into the game in a clutch moment and deliver in your only at-bat of the game. But right now, this is the guy that we need to come through. Cooper Williams has been a great hitter all season long. You can see it in his build that he's a guy who hits for power. We just talked with his teammate at New Mexico State, and he had nothing but wonderful things to say about Coop. You got to hope he's able to deliver in this spot.
So Cooper Williams ends up digging in with runners on first and second and just one out. Williams has the ability to send balls into the power galleys as this ball gets away just for a second from Bourgeois behind home plate. He's able to get to the ball in time. Recovery is enough to keep the runners over at first and second. On at first is John Thomas. On at second is Christian Moya. Cooper Williams at the dish trying to tie this game up. It's currently 2-1. Advantage to the SoCal catch. Next delivery at 1 ball and no strikes. That goes too low once more. It catches dirt. 2 balls and no strikes.
This is a hitter's count. This is the definition of a hitter's count. 2-0. You're looking dead red here. Fastball. And if it's not, you just take it. You go for your pitch on the spot.
Next delivery, Cooper Williams flies this one out towards right. It may get on out of play. It passes the line of the out of play marker. And even if the catch was to be made in right field by Hill Alexander, though he was on a dead run, it wouldn't have counted. It does land in front of him anyways. So Cooper Williams still has a chance at the dish. And it looks like that was the pitch that you were talking about. It was over the plate, maybe about chest high or so, but for lefties, that's a little bit easier of a pitch to be able to get to.
It was a pitch. It was a higher fastball, but I would say that was probably a strike. It was a good pitch to hit. He just pulled it a little bit too early. And 2-1, you're still in a good spot as a hitter, but now you have to be a little bit wise that the pitcher's trying to make a pitch too. He's not trying to get back in the at-bat. He's back in the at-bat. So same deal. You have a strike to work with, so make sure it's a good pitch. But if it's in the zone, I'd say go for it.
Next up to Williams, and he will end up flying this one foul. Left-hand side off the light pole, and it will bounce its way back into Jackie Robinson Field. The lights are on here at Jackie Robinson Field. They won't start to take place or really take hold until that middle half of the 8th inning. We're currently in the bottom half of the 7th. Runners on first and second. Cooper Williams pinching in for Cameron Briggs. 2 ball and 2 strike count with Arroyo Seco down by 1. They need a run. Argomani sends up, stepping off the rubber as he takes a look over at Moya down at second. 7th inning. Ladder chances for the Saints. They want to be able to capitalize on this opportunity. Next up to Williams. He ends up scooping this one over towards left. It's in a tough spot. It will land in foul territory, just ahead of the running Jacob Rogers. And for Williams, he is happy to be able to get another chance at the dish. And it just ends up tailing away enough to which it gets into foul territory.
You know, this is another spot where we could talk about situational and directional hitting. I mean, right now, all you need is a base hit to left field. And you've got good speed out there at second base. So I know Williams would love to be able to hit a 3-run bomb right here. And so would I. But, you know, you got to be able to drive the ball and just get a base hit. A base hit's going to tie the game. So let's just make solid contact.
Here's Williams watching on as he delivers into center field. It's going to be back on Ortiz. He takes a hop, and it goes off his glove. Moving down to second base is John Thomas. Here comes Moya. He's going to get to home. He is safe, and he goes right underneath the tag of Bourgeois. It will be a game-tying hit into center field. The question is whether or not it went off the wall. There's some initial confusion over between the umpires. Home plate umpire said he was safe. There was an out call down over towards the third base side, it looked like, but every umpire convenes for a second and they realize it is safe. Bourgeois not able to make the tag, sliding right underneath him
That ball was scorched. I mean, he nearly hit it out. He hit that ball so hard, and the center fielder almost had an opportunity to make that play that the runners weren't even able to advance. Moya made it all the way around to home, but Thomas had to stop at second base because he thought that ball was going to get caught. Williams stuck at first base because, obviously, Thomas is there at second.
And it's interesting because even though Ortiz doesn't do it intentionally, the fact that he ends up not necessarily lackadaisically, but taking a couple of slower steps at the beginning of his fielding makes his route not as efficient and keeps the runners closer than they would have been if he was on his high horse. This ball gets away. Cooper Williams up to second. John Thomas to third. And now Arroyo Seco not only has something brewing, they have tied the game, and now they have a chance to break it open with Drew Cowley at the dish.
Now this makes me wonder what the catcher going to do. Facing a situation now, second and third with one out, and I think their pitching coach is coming out to talk with him because you might want to intentionally walk this batter. Facing bases loaded with
will be batting for the second time in this game. Well, he ends up delivering 3 different armbands, shin pads over towards the left-hand side, and it has been a good inning thus far for Arroyo Seco. There will be an intentional walk, and that is one of the rule changes that you see, in which a coaching staff is now able to indicate whether or not they want to intentionally walk a guy.
How do you feel about that rule, by the way? I'm not a big fan of that. I like being able, you got to be able to make those pitches because you never know what could happen.
I am not a fan of the intentional walk rule for 2 reasons. One is the fact that there is the possibility, though rare and slim, that a pitcher may overthrow a catcher, and of course the runners would move around. The other thing is that it actually punishes the team that comes up to the plate, as Lucayo sees the first pitch in his at-bat go in their first strike, and it's 0-1. The reason why that is, the pitcher on the mound does not have to make a single throw home. The thing is, with an intentional walk, that's 4 extra pitches that he has to throw. That makes it easier, though it may not be the biggest impact in the world for a batting team. You're still driving up a pitch count in the inning and in the at-bat that may not help you tonight, but it'll help you tomorrow when he comes up to the plate or when he comes up to the mound. It may not help you tomorrow. It may help you in the next series that you face him in. But nonetheless, putting more pitches into a pitcher's hand that he has to toss.
It certainly can't hurt you if you're the batting team, making him throw more pitches. And, it actually reminds me, there was many years ago, astute baseball fans will remember this, but Miguel Cabrera hitting an intentional walk-in and hitting a base hit as that ball's rolled out to second base.
This is down to second. Lucayo on to first. The transfer is not there. One run is going to score. John Thomas moves up to home. Cooper Williams comes across, and the Arroyo Seco Saints have come alive here in the 7th inning. 1 out is recorded. That is a force out down at second, but the transfer is too low, and for the second time in this inning, a pick is not able to be brought up over at first base by Jacob Nemeth.
And finally, the Saints able to get their break. A ball hit to dead center field, but it's still almost caught by the center fielder, and this ball had double play written all over it. It was going to be a close play, able to beat it out and not picked by the first baseman. That's 2 runs, and now the Saints in front with a little bit of an insurance lead, too, 4-2. So finally able to get a good break, and now 2 innings away. This is the same thing that happened to the Saints in reverse last night.
So 2 outs are on the board. Coming across the score, Christian Moya. He was run number 1. Drew Cowley is erased over at second. As this ball gets away and moving up to second will be Lucayo. The wheels falling off rather quickly here for the SoCal catch as the Arroyo Seco Saints continue their fight to get back into this game. Well, they've achieved that, and now they have a chance to slam the door shut on a possible victory. At the dish, now for the Arroyo Seco Saints, will be Dalton Ney. Ney with a 1-ball and no strike count. Nick Lucayo standing over at second. After a wild pitch is recorded as well, Jacob Jenkins is now subbed out, and Dalton Ney batting in his stead.
You would love to see him get a base hit right here. You got to add on. 2-run lead, that's nice, and obviously better than being down a run, which was what we were coming into the inning. But you got to be able to capitalize on any insurance runs that you have on the board, things that you leave on base, runners you leave on base. I mean, you got to be able to bring them in.
Next delivery, swing and a miss from Ney, so he has a 1-ball-and-1-strike count with 2 outs. It's now 4-2 Arroyo Seco. 3 runs have come across in the inning. The Saints have come alive. 1 ball, 2-strike count. Dalton Ney's next delivery. That's well outside for ball 2, 2-2.
And you feel bad for Bly, who was the starter for the Catch, because he pitched another tremendous performance, 6 innings and 1 run, and unfortunately for him, he's not going to get a decision in today's game, but that is fortunate for the Saints. And now you also think about Beers, 5 innings. He was on the hook for the loss. Now he's on the hook for the win. So things turn around very quickly here tonight.
Dalton Ney sees this one get away. Lucayo is going to stay over at second, and to be honest, why risk getting tossed out of this inning when you still have that runner over at second and a possibility to cash in another run?
That's one of the oldest cliches in baseball, but you never make the third out at third base. A base hit here is going to score him, so don't even worry about that base. Just stay put, unless the ball gets to the backstop.
Next up for Ney, he offers at it, fouled straight back. It's going to get towards the backstop. Bourgeois will see this one bounce directly behind us.
Oh.
And I don't think it gets much closer as our camera ends up being knocked off of its moorings for just a second. I want to thank Chris for getting over to the camera. And you can currently see the dugout for the SoCal Catch, not nearly the joyous celebration that we had prior to this inning. And now you see the infield. And as it's delivered by Argon Manis, Dalton Ney will have to shade away from it as this one ends up going in too far.
How's that angle? You liking it?
I like it.
Looks pretty good.
Yeah, there you go. 2-run lead for the Arroyo Seco Saints, and out of Cal State San Bernardino. Looks like we're going to get a new batter here, and it will be Mitch Kerner.
Kerner's been one of the best hitters on the team so far this season. I mean, he's right up there with Thomas as far as his effectiveness at the plate, average, but he also hits for power. I think he's got the team lead in RBIs right now. I mean, he's one of the most effective hitters, and when you're facing a situation today, like I said before, one of the hardest things in baseball is coming off the bench, hitting cold, but Kerner is one of the guys that definitely can respond in this type of situation as that first pitch misses low.
And you mentioned Kerner. We've seen him already this year deliver some pretty clutch opportunities for the Arroyo Seco Saints. The question is whether or not the Saints can continue to drive guys home. They currently have a 1-ball-and-no-strike count as Kerner's next offering ends up getting fouled off to the right-hand side, and it goes well out of play. So it's 1-ball-and-1-strike to Mitch Kerner.
You know, this is another at-bat where 3 runs in this inning, but you don't want to leave guys on base. It's as simple as that. 2 on and 2 out, and one of your hottest hitters up. I mean, this screams a base hit right here.
Next up for Kerner, and he goes after that 374 porch in left field.
That was a good pitch to hit. He wishes he had that one back. I wish he had that one back too.
So Kerner with a 1-ball, 2-strike count, 2 gone. 2-run lead for the Arroyo Seco Saints. 2 are on. This is game 2 out of 3. The Saints need 2 innings. Okay, I'm done. But the Saints do need to close out the door on this one. The question is, can they add some more insurance? Caleb Bly gets the team all the way. Kerner stays back. They're going to peel over at first. You can hear the collective reply of yes, he did by the SoCal Catch sideline to our right-hand side. But the umpires say he did not. Now it's 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs, 2-run lead for the Arroyo Seco Saints.
And 2 announcers.
2 announcers, 2 outs, or 2 innings away from closing out a victory.
I think it's also 8:22.
Shot over towards second. They're going to get the easy force out over at first. But nonetheless, 3 runs come across on 2 hits, 1 error, and 2 runners left on base. the Arroyo Seco Saints turn a 2-1 deficit into a 4-2 lead. This is some Crown City baseball here on display. As we go to a break, we'll come back with the top half of the 8th. This is Arroyo Seco baseball. Daniel Jung is the first guy due up for the SoCal catch. It'll be Jung followed by Hill Alexander and then Jacob Rogers right behind him. Blake Beers stays on the mound and he has his workout for him this afternoon. He has been going strong so far in this one. A 4-2 lead after he initially saw a 2-1 deficit be charged to him. Brings some fast heat on the inside half. Again, I guess you would say there is no slow heat, but nonetheless, still a fastball inside corner for 2 balls and no strikes. Next delivery, he tries to go outside half and move things around and brings it to 3-0.
Now, if I'm the manager of the Saints, if I'm Coach Bueller right now, I'm very careful with Beers here in his 6th inning of work. I don't think he's thrown more than 6 innings yet this season, so we're already pushing his pitch count, and he's already pitched since the 3rd inning of this ball game. So if he gets into a little bit of trouble, I'm going to the bullpen pretty much right away. You got a lead to protect. You don't want to be able to let the catch get back in this game.
3 balls and 2 strikes. He battles back into this count, so he's still got stuff to give. 8th inning. Nobody out. Top half of the inning. Here's Beers. Jung takes inside. He did not offer at it. So Beers ends up walking him. He takes a look at the dugout, almost as if what you were talking about. He takes a look at Coach Bueller, and Coach Bueller says, you can try and work yourself out of this initially. We'll see where you go. As up next will be Hill Alexander.
Well, you know, the good thing is that he's struggled a little bit throwing strikes there. And obviously, you put him on with a walk, but he didn't throw anything that looked overly hittable yet. Good fastballs that were there, even the strikes. He's just had a little bit of trouble with control right now, but if you put 2 guys on, if you walk him or, you know, a leadoff walk obviously is problematic. You got to protect this lead. It's a 2-run game. This is not a 5 or 6 run game. This is a close game. This is something that you got the bullpen there for. You know, you've got plenty of relievers that have got great stuff, and obviously there goes Lacayo out to talk to him, try and calm him down.
And there goes Coach Bueller in the dugout getting a guy warm. So we'll see whether or not Beers ends up going out after this inning or during this inning, depending on how his development goes along in this outing. 1 ball and no strikes. He's thrown 2 straight balls after going down 3-0 initially to Daniel Jung. Now he gets back into the count with a high fastball that is cuffed over towards the right-hand side and out of play.
And he got a little bit of a break there, too. I wouldn't have swung at that pitch. It might have been a called strike, but that's one of those spots where you feel like you want to make the pitcher throw a strike. You don't want to give him a break and you foul something off, and all of a sudden he's got a little bit of confidence.
Tries to bring a sweeper on the inside half and ends up staying too high up. 2 balls and 1 strike. There's a runner on at first. That is Daniel Jung. At the dish is Hill Alexander. He'll be followed by Jacob Rogers. This is scooped over towards the right center field gap, trying to get to it. Will end up being Daltonay. He fires it in, and Daniel Jung will easily make his way down to third base. So it ends up being a pretty long single that is delivered by Hill Alexander. Coach Bueller going out just to deliver some baseballs or to get his pitcher. We'll see in just a moment. And he ends up delivering the baseballs and still making a mound visit. So he may just go for the 2-for-1 deal in this afternoon. Everybody's trying to save themselves some money and time. 4-2 lead. That is delivered for the Arroyo Seco Saints in the last half inning. Over down the first base side is the SoCal catch.
And that was a great play by Nate to be able to cut that ball off too, keeping the guy at third base. You know, that ball was a gapper right off the bat, and it had a double written all over it. And so he was able to cut it off, keep it to a single. First and third is still a manageable situation, and the good thing about having that second run and having that insurance run is even if the man on third base comes in to score, you still have the lead. So as a new pitcher comes in, I believe Charles Peacock, now the new pitcher coming into the game, you have a little bit of leeway to be able to work out of this inning. But you got to be able to make strikes, throw strikes. You got to be able to get outs. So hopefully Peacock is going to be able to do that.
So Charles Peacock will enter the game. And as you mentioned, you have a 4-2 lead. You have the opportunity to be able to work a little bit. Now you have a chance to not necessarily see what your bullpen has in them because you're already a good portion through the season, almost halfway through. But you have a chance to be able to get guys in some meaningful situations. You have a 4-2 lead. You have 4 wins in league, and you have the chance to make it number 5 and be able to move up in the standings. Now for Charles Peacock, it becomes all the more important with runners on the corners and still facing the 5, 6, and 7 batters possibly. It's all the more important for him to come in and, as you said, throw strikes and try and get it out.
And we've talked about how at the bottom of their order they've got good hitters. So it's not as if, you're going to be faced with a cakewalk once you get down to the 7, 8, and even the 9 spot. But I will say this. This team has had leads late in the games before and unfortunately have not been able to capitalize and close the game out. So this is a very big spot for them and for their psyche to be able to get out of this, hold the lead, move into the 9th inning, and shut the game down in the 9th. This is still a winnable game, obviously. It's starting, if you're feeling the momentum shift towards us with a 3-run inning. So first and third, nobody out. You're in a tough spot. You got to be able to get these guys out.
And you talk about the possibility of the SoCal catch coming back into this game. You can look no further than last night and what the Arroyo Seco Saints did, in which they had that 2-1 lead. It came across and ended up being a 3-2 victory for the SoCal catch. Why? Because, as you said, Chris, the bullpen wasn't able to hammer it home and come away with the victory. So the question is, can they rebound and do that tonight? So our score is 4-2. SoCal catch coming up to the plate. They will bring up Jacob Rogers with runners on first and third with nobody out. Top 8. Over down that right-hand side, Tom Stafford, one of the founders of the 15-year-old Arroyo Seco Saint program.
I got a good feeling about him right now. I know he's thinking triple play right here, first pitch. I don't know how that would be possible, but that's what we're all hoping for right now.
There's Rogers checking his swing, but it ends up going in the strike zone nonetheless, and it's 1 ball, actually make it no balls and 1 strike. Charles Peacock now on the mound for Peacock. Right-handed pitcher out of Texas, going to Galveston College. Redshirt freshman there. He goes into his wind and delivers as this is fouled back towards the right-hand side and into the darkness of Brookside Park.
One of the things about Peacock, he's one of the younger pitchers that's on the staff, but his stuff is electric. I mean, he comes into the game, he gives high-velocity fastballs, good off-speed pitches. He's able to keep hitters off of balance. And, I mean, you've seen it already, 2 pitches, he's able to get ahead in the count quickly. He's one of the more effective relievers and somebody who in this spot is definitely someone you'd expect to thrive.
He's going to check over at first. Throw is good, just a shade late as Cooper Williams tried to snap the tag down. John Thomas no longer over at first. No balls and 2 strikes. Jacob Rogers, so far this afternoon, he is 0 for 1. As he goes around on this one, Nick Lucayo's going to toss down to second. Ball gets away for a second as Daniel Jung takes a long look at it and ends up not offering at home plate. So the runner will be safe over at second base. Moving up to second is Hill Alexander. Daniel Jung stays at third, but getting that first and ever important out is Charles Peacock.
But moving up to second, that's a huge play for the SoCal catch. Now you're faced with the same situation we were talking about in the bottom of the seventh. Second and third and one out. What do? Are you going to intentionally walk? In this spot, I'm not so sure you do that because you would trade an out for a run. You still have the lead, 4-3. And then when you're faced with two outs, all you got to do is just get the third out to get out of the inning. So if you load the bases here, you're now faced with bases loaded, the go-ahead run on base. A double is going to give them the lead. So I would say right now, Peacock, all he needs to focus on is making his pitch, getting out this man out. Even if it's a ground ball, even if it's a fly ball and the run comes in to score, it's not the end of the world.
1 out on the board. As Chris said, 4-2 lead, 8th inning. Nice block by Lucayo, keeping it in front of him. Daniel Jung stays over at third as it didn't get too far away. Lucayo keeps it in front. Peacock checking in for the sign from Lucayo. Outfield swung around slightly towards left. Infield pinched in over at short and third. Colin Shepard continues to creep his way down towards third as this is hammered deep into the night. Trying to get back is Cameron Briggs. He will make the catch and toss it in. It ends up with one run coming across. As you said, Chris, you'd rather trade that out for the run. The run for the out. So now there are 2 outs on the board. Runner at second stays put, as Hill Alexander will stay at second, and moving across to score is Daniel Jung.
I got to tell you, though, that made my heart drop a little bit coming off the bat. I thought, this ball is going deep to left field. But, a great play out in left to be able to catch that, run it down, and obviously 1 run. But still, you got to be able to get this man out. A base hit here is going to tie the game. So the inning is not over yet by any stretch.
2 outs on the board. A swing and a miss to start things off, as Ortiz goes right over top of it. Ortiz in this game, he has a walk, a strikeout, and a fly out to left field. Going into the set, next delivery is Peacock. That goes well up and high. 1 ball, 1 strike, 2 away. 4-3 lead. Now it's a 1-run advantage for Arroyo Seco. Peacock into the set, takes a quick peek over at second. This is sent foul, left-hand side.
All right, you're 1 pitch away. It's 1-2 now.
No wind to speak of as it died down from earlier this afternoon. The band competition behind us ends up lowering itself to a very still crowd. Everybody watching and anticipating. They probably stop because they know that this game is getting into the latter stages. 1 ball and 2 strikes. It's bounced over towards the right-hand side and foul.
The silence really helps with the dramatic, how dramatic this moment is, I have to tell you.
4-3 lead, 1 run. That's what separates both of these 2 teams. Arroyo Seco trying to tie up this series. They're here in the top half of the 8th inning. Looking to deliver to Ortiz is Peacock, and it's a swing and a miss by Ortiz. He's just a step late, and that will retire the side. 1 run does come across to score, but it stays as an Arroyo Seco lead as we go to the bottom half of the 8th inning. It's 4-3 Arroyo Seco with the lead. This is Crown City Baseball on the air. We welcome you back to Arroyo Seco Baseball. We are on the air and in the bottom half of the 8th inning as we get set for Gabe Chavez to come up to the dish first. He'll be followed by Colin Shepard and Christian Moya. First three due up. Tom Stafford also joining us on the air right now. Chris D'Avanzo to my right-hand side. That is a strike outside half. Gabe Chavez will watch all the way. And Chris, in these latter innings with that one-run lead, you have the opportunity to kind of sit back on pitches when you have the advantage.
Definitely, and it's one of those situations where, and we've repeated this all night, but you got to be able to score runs, even when you're in front of leading by a run, leading by 2 runs. We saw how important it was in the last half inning, where a 2-run lead, they score a run. If it's a 1-run game, they're tied back in the game. But now we still have an advantage, 4-3 to score. So your hope is that you don't want a 1-2-3 inning here. You want to be able to put some guys on, do some damage. That ball's hit down the right field line.
Trying to slice away from Hill Alexander. It gets towards the line, but Alexander stays with it the entire way, and he will make the catch for out number 1. And coming up next is Colin Shepard. Christian Moya will now move up to the on-deck circle down the left-hand side.
But, the advantage of playing with the lead is that you're not really pressing. You don't feel the pressure of, if, say, the score was 3-2 in favor of SoCal, you'd be faced with, well, we really need to score a run. We're trying to get back into the game. That's what we're going to have in our advantage going into the top half of the 9th inning, with it being a 1-run lead or potentially more. But, you're faced with, okay, we can relax, we're in front, find our pitch, work the count. You're really just trying to be able to play traditional, good, pure baseball.
Yeah, well said. I think kind of opens you up to be a little bit more aggressive, right, in this situation and kind of add on to your lead, as you can see here by a bunt attempt. Yeah, Shepard's been a nice addition to our squad this year.
Definitely. He was player of the game just the other day on Wednesday night.
Did you hear his interview yesterday, too?
Did not.
Yeah, he's got a good future after baseball if he chooses to get in the business.
He'll be coming to take one of our spots. He's too good at the game. We'll trade. We'll have Ryan go out. He can go out there and hit, and we'll have Colin call the game.
I'll take it. 1 ball, 2 strikes, 1 out. Colin Shepard down to third, trying to pick it up and toss over to first, as it will not come across. Trying to pick it up was Jacob Rogers. He hustled it just a shade, and Colin Shepard will now be on over at first.
That's a good example of kind of putting the ball in play, and that's just kind of baseball, right? You put the ball in play, you put pressure on the defense, and good things happen, right? And next thing you know, you got a runner on.
And I got to say, I think it's his hustle that really made that happen, because you're not able to slow down and really make the play when you see a guy sprinting out the box like that. So you're making things happen with your legs there, too.
Moya is up next as he takes that one well low to start.
Yeah, Christian Moya is obviously from USC, and we've had some players from USC over our tenure. Angelo Armenta, Stephen Dubb, those guys. And so John Thomas and Moya, they're the kind of next iteration of SC guys on the Saints. So it's good to see.
Well, it's always good to have the Southern California connection, especially down here. And especially, I know that it's UCLA that plays at the Rose Bowl, but there's such a tradition of USC playing in the Rose Bowl game and right across the street we've got our players here at the Jackie Robinson Memorial Field. So there is sort of a natural pairing between USC and the Arroyo Seco Saints.
Being from Florida, I'm not sure if you understand, but you're opening up a can of worms.
I'm sure I did.
I can remember a game in the Rose Bowl in 2005 that USC was in.
Yeah.
I remember that game very well. And I remember a little-known quarterback named Vince Young making a nice play there.
I was actually at that game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was at the game. One of the best college baseball games in history.
That's how you know we're in the late innings and we're talking about something.
College football, exactly.
We're talking about something completely different.
This is fouled back to the right-hand side. 3 balls and 2 strikes. A full count to Christian Moya with a runner over at first. When you talk about that, though it is college football that's happening behind us, college baseball that's happening in front of us, it just adds to the allure that is Pasadena and this entire basin.
This is a special area. Pasadena has a rich tradition of sending athletes to, obviously, all across the country, but specifically to USC and UCLA, generally like in the Mirror area. So there's a long history of guys going there. So.
And I can also say, being a Florida guy, as you pointed out, that being able to come to Pasadena every day, and it's fresh eyes for me being able to see it. It's just it really is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. I mean, even in Los Angeles, they talk about Los Angeles being one of the nicest places on earth, but Pasadena really is sort of the crown jewel of Southern California.
Yeah, in fact, one of our coaches, Dave Andrews, he's actually on the tournament, so he's been a long-time contributor to the Tournament of Roses, and so he's one of the white coats. So when you watch the Tournament of Roses parade,
very cool
on TV, he's one of the guys behind the scenes, kind of making it happen.
And you talk about that Rose Parade. I mean, you see it happen for over 100 years, and not a lot of people, when they think of Los Angeles, initially say, "Oh, okay." When I think of Los Angeles, I'll think of the Rose Parade. You have to kind of get down the list, but when you look at Pasadena, you have the Rose Bowl behind us, Jackie Robinson Field here, Pasadena City College down the way, in addition to the historic buildings, the bridge that's right down the street. As this is hammered over towards left, everyone's going to move up one station. Moving up to second is Colin Shepard, and a single for John Thomas makes it runners on first and second with 2 out, and Cooper Williams up next. But that history just kind of is, I guess you would say, engrossed or intertwined with the way that this entire city is built.
It is, and actually has some East Coast ties to it. So the Tournament of Roses was predated by a group called the Valley Hunt Club. So folks from the East Coast came out, and they were actually very much attracted to the weather. And so that predated the Tournament of Roses to kind of what it is now. So to your point about the history, yeah, it runs deep here.
There's an outside corner strike to Cooper Williams.
Oh, well, speaking of history, we've seen, and we've talked about it tonight on the broadcast, we've seen it all season long, the 15th season of Arroyo Seco. Is there any moment that really stands out to you so far this season as something that you're going to remember being as one of these seminal moments that has happened in the history of Saints baseball?
I think so. I mean, again, we're in our second year, obviously in the CCL, and so there's not one specific moment, just kind of in general. It's a learning curve for us, and as I said, it was on the broadcast yesterday, and we strive to kind of get better and better. So there's not a specific moment, but one of the things that stands out to us is our coaching staff. Sean Bueller is well respected within the baseball world. To have a national champion in our pitching coach and Matt Troop, that kind of says something that, we're kind of attracting people in the baseball world that are going to contribute to Saints baseball. So for us, that's neat.
And a lot of very talented, high-character guys, too, which says a lot about the recruitment for the players. Everybody that we've been able to talk to, whether off the air or on the air, these are all not just great baseball players, but these are really good people, too.
Sure, and that goes to the testament I said yesterday on the broadcast about our GM, Aaron Milam, put together a roster. When we're talking to coaches, we're trying to get a quality baseball player, obviously a quality person, too. So
this is popped up over towards the third base side. Getting under it is Jacob Rogers. He will make the catch, and that will end the inning. No runs come across. A couple of base runners are stranded. We're going to go to the top half of the ninth inning, where Arroyo Seco is hanging on to a 1-run lead. It's 4-3, folks, as we go to the top of the ninth. This is Arroyo Seco Baseball on the air. Welcome back to Arroyo Seco Baseball, live and on the air. I am Ryan Osborne, joined by Chris Diavanzo. Over to my right-hand side, the extreme right-hand side, is Tom Stafford, one of the founders of Arroyo Seco Baseball. And before we went to the break, as now Mr. Steele is on the mound, when you look at the man Joey Steele, right-handed pitcher out of San Marino, California, out of the University of San Francisco, you talked about character guys who come to Arroyo Seco Baseball, Chris. And Tom, you can speak more on it. Joey Steele is one of those guys who stuck with his progression, and now with Arroyo Seco is kind of blossoming into a late-inning guy.
Yeah, so we've known Joe for a long time. He actually played for Aaron Milam in high school. He did well at St. Francis, and then he had a chance to play for us during the summer when we had a graduated senior team. And you could really see his confidence develop when he got into kind of bigger situations. He was competing against better competition, and he started to kind of step up to that opportunity. And his body's physically developed too. He took a gap year at IMG Academy in Florida, and then he went to USF. You can see he's filled out. You can see physically he's a pretty intimidating presence, and his confidence. You can see he pitches with a lot of aggression now, and he talks a lot about visualization and being process-oriented and how he's incorporated that into his pitching routine, which is something that a lot of colleges do, and you can see the result. And so he's kind of developed a role here for the Saints. He's also looking to take over the closer role at USF, and so we're really proud of his progression and to kind of see what he's going to do next year in the college ranks.
That's a true success story right there for Arroyo Seco. So it's a great pitch right there.
As Ortiz goes down swinging. Coming up next will be Jacob Nemeth, and he'll be followed by the top of the lineup with Ange Bourgeois coming up after him.
Confidence is such a huge part of baseball. I mean, we talk about the mental part of the game and the psychological part of the game, but it's tough to be able to utilize your stuff effectively when you're thinking, well, I don't know if this is going to be able to work or if I'm not going to be able to get this guy out. Joey, when you see him when he pitches, like you said, he's aggressive, but he throws mid to high 90 stuff right down the middle, and he challenges hitters, and he's got total faith that, listen, I know this stuff is going to get you out. You have to be able to hit it. And most of the time, he's correct in his assessment. So
it's funny you saying that. Joe sharing a story during the college season about how he utilizes visualization. So when he's in the bullpen, he actually goes through progression about hitters, and he goes through visualizing striking out 2, 3, 4, 6 hitters. So when he goes into the game, he kind of replicates that like it's already happened, and then he makes reality come. He makes it come to reality. So it's an interesting kind of a psychology on kind of what contributes to confidence, and so that's something that he's implementing. So that kind of complements your point, Chris, about how confidence is developed, and so he's actively doing that.
And it's positive feedback. You see the success on the mound. That makes it much easier to be able to use those techniques, and then when you use those techniques, it makes it easier to be able to step back on the mound to begin with. So honestly, Steele has been wonderful this season, and you've seen him pitching in late situations. I think back to that game earlier this season. He had an inning in 2/3, came in with runners on second and third and 1 out, didn't allow a run, got through the 9th inning, and we were able to win that game against Conejo.
Yeah, 100%. So for 13 years, we were a graduated senior team. So our whole goal was to prepare players to get to college. And so that's both physically, that's both mentally, seeing better competition during the summer, having more games, and kind of getting acclimated to that schedule. So everything that we did was trying to springboard guys into kind of that next level, and we were hoping to contribute to that. So to answer your question, 100%. And so this is just kind of the next iteration. Now we're in the college ranks, so guys are already kind of doing that during the year. Now they're refining their skills in the summer. And so as our programs evolved, we've kind of helped that with our players too. So
2 balls and 1 strike on the count to Bourgeois. When you look at these guys and they go from their regular season programs, they come out here, each one of them has a different goal in mind, different maybe parameters as well for guys on the mound, different pitch counts as well. How do you make sure, as this one is sent out towards left, camping out underneath it, will be Briggs. He will make the catch. The Arroyo Seco Saints come across with the victory. It's a come-from-behind statement for the Saints as they end up winning their 5th game in league. They move up to 5-10. But going back to that point, how do you make sure that you deal with the different goals and parameters that each guy comes in here with?
So that's actually something we're very intentional about. So we have relationships, particularly our GM Aaron Milam has relationships with the coaches. And so each guy has their own specific needs that they have. So let's say for like pitchers, right? They have a certain pitch limit. Or let's say if they experienced an injury during the year, right? That's something that we have to be cognizant of. So we work actively in order to kind of make sure that they get what they
They
need.
showed fight multiple times throughout this game, not allowing that bases loaded missed opportunity to get to them later on.
You know what? That's been the story of this team all season long, is their resiliency and their ability to fight back whenever they're faced with a tough situation. Unfortunately for the Saints, for most of the season, they fought and just come up a little bit short. But today, able to get the lead, 3 runs, and then when they were faced with another challenge with guys on first and third, nobody out, still able to hold the lead and close it down. A 4-3 win, you know, it's the same thing as a 12-3 win. So it's a great game, and honestly, maybe a little bit better 4-3 win. It makes it taste a little bit sweeter. So a great win for the Saints today. You hope that they're able to build on that for tomorrow. They come back to play these guys again, and so it's the process of baseball, one day at a time. You know, you take what you can from today and you move on tomorrow.
You talk about tomorrow, that game will be at the SoCal Catch, and it starts off a 9-game road trip for the Saints. 9 games in 11 days, including a Northern California trip that will be coming up. A lot of baseball to be played. Unfortunately for us, it's away from Brookside Park, but if you're able to, go out and support the Saints. Follow them around. They'll be at SoCal coming up tomorrow afternoon, later on in the week at San Luis Obispo, and also up north at Healdsburg as well. Our final score this afternoon, a 4-3 win for the Arroyo Seco Saints to bring them up to 5-10 in league. For Tom Stafford, Chris DeAvanzo, Ryan Osborne, this has been Arroyo Seco Baseball on the air. A victory to the Saints. It's a 4-3 win. Good night, everybody.